All right, I think we are live. Technically a minute early, but you know the drill at this point. Just going to get this stream link out here once it's up. I actually did things a little bit differently this time, trying to set this stream up, so hopefully it'll still work. It's not showing up on my phone right now, but if you're watching this part, good morning. Congrats on being up early. I know a lot of people in the Central Time Zone watch this channel, so it's not even 9 o'clock yet over there, so congrats on you guys. Or you might be watching the recording later. So welcome. Looks like we got one person in here right now. But we finally made it. It's NFL Sunday. I am so excited. I feel like a kid on Christmas morning right now. Looks like we do have the link now. So if you're in the chat, feel free to say hi. Just pop on in. But we're going to be talking some ball today for a few hours before the games get started. As I now have that link up. Hopefully some more people will come in here. It's been a crazy couple of weeks for the channel now. Lot of new people joining the Dr. Pigskin army. It looks like we've got Gabe, Jack, and Tyler all in here, as well as Ted. Welcome to the stream, Ted. New name in here. How you doing? Welcome to Dr. Pigskin, the Pigskin pregame. Gabe says, raise the flags. A big game today. His Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus my Minnesota Vikings. That's going to be crazy. I don't know. We'll get to that game in a little bit, but pretty much what we're going to do today is we're going to break down the Thursday night game, the kickoff game between the Lions and the Chiefs. We've got a lot to talk about with that as Lightning enters the chat. Let's go. Welcome, Lightning. Going to be talking about the Lions in a little bit. And then from there, we're going to dive right in to the Sunday slate. We're going to pick every game. I'm going to highlight one thing that I'm watching for each team. Like, could be a narrative, could be how I think they're going to do, something like that. And then we'll have the Docs Locks, where I have a few picks, a few lines that I really like if you are into putting money down on certain things, if you know what I'm saying. And maybe talk some fantasy too. You know, people are setting their lineup right now and just trying to get ready for the season. Looks like the chat has been going crazy. Tyler says, go Vikes. Lightning says, Lions, baby. Ted says, I just subscribed to the channel. I've just subscribed. I've been loving your channel. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Welcome to the stream, and thanks for hanging out. Gabe says, time to bake. We will see if Baker can bake. We're going to be talking about Baker a lot, I actually feel like. But it's the morning. I've got my coffee and my chocolate milk. I'm still a little bit out of it right now, actually. I've been awake since like 6:45, I'm not going to lie. And I've just been like scrolling Twitter the whole morning. It's honestly like a really bad habit. I need to like get off my phone so much. But yeah, I've been awake for a while now, but I'm still out of it. So I'm hoping some caffeine mixed with some sugar can really kick me into gear. But we've got a decent turnout right now, so I think we're just going to get started. Usually I have to like awkwardly make small talk like I'm in like a hotel elevator, but we're just going to get started. So y'all see my OBS set up for a sec. And first things first, we got to talk about the first game of the season. The Detroit Lions coming into Arrowhead Stadium and beating the Kansas City Chiefs on the day that they raised their banner for their new Super Bowl. And I got to say, I am shocked. Color me shocked. I know KC was shorthanded. You know, they were without two of their three best players. I didn't think that they were going to blow the Lions out, but I still thought it was going to be a comfortable Chiefs win. So what do we take away from this? Well, let's start with the Lions. Let's start with the winners, right? History will always remember the victors. I'm going to be honest, and this is not me being mean or disrespectful or anything. You might see I have a Vikings jersey on. Full disclosure, for anyone new, I am a Vikings fan, but I will try my best to be objective and not biased or talk about the Vikings too much. But with that in mind, to be honest, this doesn't really change how I view the Lions that much. Now, that being said, how I view the Lions is I view them as the best team in the NFC North. I view them as a team that will probably win 10, maybe 11 games. They are a good football team. They're well coached. They've got good players all around the field. The rookies looked really good, which we'll talk about. But it was a 1-point victory in a game that, I mean, if you hold Kansas City to 20 points, I don't know. I mean, give credit to the defense, but I I don't know. What do you guys think? Ted says Lions are for real. That's what I think. I mean, I respect it. Like, getting a win on the road in Kansas City, no matter how shorthanded they are, that takes guts. That's pretty impressive. I mean, again, I didn't think they were going to do that even while the Chiefs were shorthanded. Takeaway, the Lions drafted well. They did. Hey, Sam Laporta looked really good. Jahmyr Gibbs looked really good in the limited action that he got. Even Jack Campbell made some good plays. Brian Branch with the pick six. For all the narratives that there have been about positional value and maybe the Lions reached on a few guys or you shouldn't draft a running back or a safety or a linebacker early, they're all really good players. And, maybe sometimes that's all you need is just good football players. And I don't know. I will say, as someone that just enjoys football and doesn't try and get too caught up in oh, well, you have to have players at this position or that position. It was pretty cool to see a linebacker and a safety and a running back and a tight end make big plays for a team that is really trying to do a lot this season. This probably does raise expectations for the Lions some. I think the narrative might change around them a little bit, and people are going to be expecting a lot from this team. Lions had Gabe in the offseason, so there's that. That is true. Maybe there's some carryover, and maybe he'll complete the sweep and go 2-0 today. 1 point victory is a W. Hey, look at the jersey I'm wearing. I know all about that. That was all I heard last year was lucky, fraudulent wins and stuff like that. So I can certainly empathize with the Lions if people are calling them fake or anything. This is not me saying oh, the Lions are frauds. There are some Vikings fans I've seen that are saying oh, I actually feel better about playing the Lions for the division now. I would not say that. They beat the Chiefs. I don't know. That is a bit extreme in my opinion. Lions are good, but KC definitely beat themselves. See, that is the thing. I still feel through all that, Kansas City was still probably the slightly better team on the field. Let's take a look at this guy, Kadarius Toney. And I know everyone is piling on him right now, and maybe he brought it upon himself. He's been running his mouth a little bit if you've been paying attention this offseason. I genuinely don't know if I've ever seen a non-quarterback actively hurt his team's chances of winning more than Kadarius Toney did on Thursday. 1 catch for 1 yard on 5 targets, and I think the other 4 targets were drops, were they not? Or at least 3 of them. 1 drop led to a pick 6. 1 drop was in a key spot late in the game. I mean, it was just incredible. They just kept on coming and coming. And Toney had the drop. Sky Moore had the drop on 4th and 25, which I actually think was the right call. The Kansas City wide receivers look really bad right now. They desperately need Travis Kelce to come back. The Chiefs kind of played a fun game of just how far can we stretch out Patrick Mahomes? Do we really need wide receivers, or can Mahomes do it with literally nothing? And I think they might have learned a tough lesson on Thursday that, maybe you should at least have some competence in the wide receiver room. They really missed Juju too. That was another thing. It's one thing to be without Kelce. I think even if they had Juju for this game, they would have won. They really, really missed him. Let's see. What else is the chat saying so far? Lions went for it on 4th down in the first quarter. Balls? Absolutely. I mean, hey, that's the Dan Campbell brand, right? You got the fake punt going for it on 4th down. That is kind of one of the metas in the NFL right now, is you just kind of get that extra down. You get another play to work with, and that's just how the Lions do it, and I respect it. They're gutsy. They're going to take their shots. They're going to drop some wacky plays maybe. They're going to go for it on 4th down, and when you have an offensive line like that, they're going to get it too. Oscar says Falcons-Panthers. Welcome to the stream, Oscar. We will see today, won't we? We're going to talk about Falcons-Panthers in a little bit. I've been catching some heat for how I've been talking about the Panthers. I'm actually very excited for the Falcons-Panthers game. I think that might be one of the most exciting games of week 1. I am really looking forward to that. Gabe says, Branch wouldn't have gotten that pick 6 without that crazy play from Campbell in the same series. You're absolutely right, and those little things add up. Small plays like that, it's easy to highlight the pick 6, but It's those smaller plays that really add up. The Lions definitely made more of the smaller plays. They looked like a really well-coached team, and they just executed better. I know I sound like some dad in the high school stands right now being like, you need to execute. But that is one of the biggest reasons why they won the game, is because they actually showed up, and I feel like they played pretty close to their full potential. I think they could still maybe do even a little bit more on offense, which Caden, welcome to the stream, is saying their offense is going to be nice. It is nice. It's been nice. I mean, it was really nice last year. They were like top 5, top 8 in most metrics. They were putting up points on teams. Amon-Ra St. Brown looks like an elite receiver. Again, he's been producing ever since he came into the league. You have Josh Reynolds making plays. I talked about Laporta already. You know, he only had 5 catches for 39 yards, but every time he had the ball in his hands, he looked pretty good, and he had a few important catches that really kept drives on schedule and kept them moving. And I look and see 5 catches on 5 targets. That's pretty good. You want that from your tight ends. Tight ends, I think they upgraded a lot at tight end. No disrespect to Brock Wright, but that was big. And then Jahmyr Gibbs. Man, Jahmyr Gibbs looked really good. He looked so good in the open field. It's really a shame that he slipped on that one play, because he had daylight, and he probably would have scored if he didn't fall down. But he had a few nice runs too. They didn't quite use Gibbs how I thought they might have. You know, there's a lot of talk about Gibbs maybe playing more receiver. Their coaches are saying like, oh, we're going to use him in a way that you've never really seen before. But it's also 1 week. So I think people need to calm down, especially the fantasy people that were kind of upset with Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs passed the eye test. He looked like a good football player. And no, his stats weren't jaw-dropping, but he looked like a good football player. They might have something with Gibbs and Montgomery. Ted says, yeah, Detroit just kind of sucked at defense last year, but their offense was incredible. I think they're for real, but yeah, they still need to perform. It could go south. I feel like the ceiling, well, I'll say this. I feel like the floor is fairly high for the Lions. Like, I don't see this as a team that's just going to, like, fall apart and, like, have, like, a terrible stretch where they lose, like, 6 out of 7 games. I think they got that out of the way last year with how much better their defense is now. Like, this is a pretty safe team. I think the biggest thing with the Lions, and I think just this just depends on what your expectations for Detroit are. I feel like their ceiling is capped a little bit, and I don't want to pick on Jared Goff because I think he is a pretty good quarterback and he runs the offense pretty well, but this game was just sort of a perfect example of what you can and can't do with Jared Goff as your quarterback. If you're watching this stream, you're probably plugged into NFL Twitter like I am. You might have seen Ben Solak, his tweet, breaking down that Jared Goff play, which he actually made a really nice throw, but he highlighted that Amon-Ra was open. He didn't see it. And then Kurt Warner had a pretty good response too. So, I mean, there's nuance to it. There's people on both sides. You know, I'm not saying it's a bad play by Goff, but when you miss out on big plays like that, which ultimately didn't matter, but also the 4th and 2 late in the game where the pass was batted down, you know, Goff might have been able to run for it if he just had a little bit more juice. That's just not who he is. And again, I sound like a broken record. I understand what it's like because my quarterback, Kirk Cousins, is kind of the same way. I just feel like there's maybe a capped ceiling with Jared Goff. And if the expectation is like, go win the division, maybe win a playoff game, I think you're going to be pretty happy because I think those are very realistic goals. But right now, this is not a Super Bowl team. And I don't know. If people expect them to like win 13, 14 games now or kind of have like an Eagles-like season because of this game, I mean, it's a long season. They could get better. But I don't foresee more than like maybe 10 or 11 wins for this team. I think that is the thing with the Lions. And again, that's not bad. I mean, what? Most Lions fans, I feel like, haven't seen a playoff win in their lifetime. Like, that would be pretty sweet. Hosting a playoff game in Detroit, you take that, you know? So, I just think that is my expectation for the Lions, and it hasn't really changed since this game. I have to keep scrolling through the chat. It's going crazy. Oscar says, need to pick up Julio or trade for Mike Evans or get AB. Well, let's hope they don't get AB because at this point, AB just needs to make sure he's not in prison. I mean, he still would probably be pretty good, which is crazy. Like, I still think Antonio Brown would probably be a good receiver in the NFL. He He's not okay. He needs to get help, like genuinely. If they picked up Julio, that would be interesting because Julio actually had a few games where he still looked solid last year. I think Julio would have really helped the Chiefs on Thursday. He's obviously not the player he once was, but I think he still could perform in the league. Like, he could play on a team. Mike Evans is the interesting one because I feel like there are going to be trade rumors around Mike Evans now, especially depending on how the Buccaneers do over the first few games. The big news yesterday was that he didn't agree to a contract extension. Excuse me. He and his team set a deadline of, okay, we need a deal by this time. Otherwise, we're not signing anything. And it didn't happen. And if Tampa finds themselves with 1 or 2 wins at the trade deadline, which isn't impossible, it's probably 50-50. Maybe not 50-50, but if Tampa finds themselves to be sellers at the trade deadline, Mike Evans is a name that you're going to hear a lot, and it would be maybe wise for the Chiefs to just say, you know what, we're going to go all in again. We're going to try and get as much juice out of this orange as we possibly can. Let's go get Mike Evans. Who cares if we don't have a first-round pick next year? I think Mike Evans could fetch a first or second-round pick. We'll see. Gabe asks, thoughts on 4th and 25? And Oscar says, not the worst call in my opinion. They weren't stopping the Lions' rush regardless. I would absolutely agree. I honestly think that 4th and 25 was the right call. Right? Because if you're the Chiefs, you look at it this way. You need a 3-and-out or a 4-and-out or whatever. Either way. You need a stop right away. You can't let the Lions get a first down regardless. You have Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. And I get it's 25 yards. But you might as well at least try. If you know you need the stop either way, you might as well give yourself a chance to at least pick up the first down first. And the crazy thing is, it should have worked. It was in Sky Moore's hands, and maybe the pass was a little bit too high. But that should have worked. They should have picked that up. So I agree with the call. Hindsight can be 20/20. You can be why would they do that? They should have just punted. I saw one tweet about how the Chiefs should have ran out of bounds at the 9 so the Lions couldn't get a first down. It's honestly, that might have been interesting, but maybe that's a little bit too big brained. But I do think 4th and 25 was the right call. It just didn't work out. When you have Patrick Mahomes, you have to try that. And to Oscar's credit, not stopping the Lions' rush, that is what might win the Lions a lot of games. I was asked a few days ago, who was the player of the game for the Lions? Not to be lame, but if I had to give the game ball out, I'd give it to the offensive line. The offensive line played their tails off in that game, and they were the closers. Them and David Montgomery closed this game out. You look at David Montgomery's numbers, 74 yards, 3.5 yards per carry. Only 8-yard run is his longest run. And that doesn't look super impressive. But those were some tough yards to pick up. He did his job. He did the dirty work. Montgomery and the line really closed that game out. Gabe says, Laporta had 3 first down catches. And OS3? Yeah, go check out OS3 if y'all are in here. That's Oscar Stewart III, very talented music producer. Go check him out on YouTube and Spotify. Little plug right there. Lightning says, Lions 15-2, 2 losses to the Vikings. You're sticking with that take, huh? I respect it. I do think it's brilliant how the Lions and Vikings play to the final 3 weeks of the season. I think those 2 games might decide the division. I will say, the Vikings will be probably in the race for the most part. However, I do think the Lions are going to win the games that'll matter. Like Week 18, final game of the season, I think that one's in Detroit too. The Lions are not losing that game. I think as long as the Vikings don't sweep the Lions, which I really don't see happening, Detroit should be safe. Anyone agree with me that Week 1 is the best in years? So many good matchups. I'm glad you say that. Let's dive into Week 1. We've talked about this game enough. That was the past. Good win for the Lions. The Chiefs have a lot to work on. They need Travis Kelce to come back. One more thing I'll say before we move on. Chiefs defense played really, really, really well. They played so much better without Chris Jones than I ever thought they would have. George Karlaftis looked pretty good. I think he could be even better this year. He was really good as a rookie last year. He had 6 sacks. I could see like 8 or 9 for him this year. Trent McDuffie looks like a star in the making. Man, he was a guy that I really wanted the Vikings to draft. He had a heck of a game. Nick Bolton made a few big plays. He did get beat in coverage some. He struggled guarding Laporta a little bit, but, everyone looks at like that one big hit that he had. I think it was against David Montgomery. But the Chiefs defense played a lot better than I thought they would. That's what I'll say. But all right, that's enough of that. Let's dive in to week 1. And I agree with Ted that this is a great looking week 1. We've got a lot of fun matchups. I talked about this one. This one looks like a fun game. 49ers Steelers is a really slept on game, especially for a 1 o'clock window. Bears Packers, classic rivalry. First game of the Jordan Love era. We'll see how Justin Fields looks. Eagles Patriots is another good one. Super Bowl rematch from a few years ago. 2 Super Bowls, actually. They also played back in like the early 2000s. Dolphins Chargers, the Emmanuel Ocho Bowl. Tua versus Herbert. 2 playoff teams last year. And then, for as much crap as I always give for the NFL for forcing the NFC East down our throats, I gotta say, Cowboys Giants on Sunday night, these 2 teams are actually pretty good this year, so this should be a fun game. It is a little tiring seeing this, but I'll take it. And then on Monday, we got the game of the week on Monday. Bills Jets. I mean, we will be up and ready for that one. That should be good. I am very excited for that. I am low-key intrigued with the Packers-Bears. Might be the most underrated matchup. I mean, there should be some chippiness to it too. Bears and Packers players have been talking a little bit. I like that rivalry has some juice again. That's just a classic, good old-fashioned football rivalry. The way the game should be played, right? NFC North football. You gotta love it. Besides just being a Vikings fan, I love the NFC North. I love being in the NFC North. It's such a fun division. It just oozes football. Classic. Tyler asks, what happened to Travis? Well, he hyperextended. I can't remember if it was his knee or his elbow, to be honest, but he hyperextended something. He should be fine next week. He just didn't play on Thursday. Honestly, even if that game was on Sunday instead of Thursday, he might have played. Like, he'll be fine. He'll probably just play 16 games instead of 17. Clip it, Gabe. He's doubting y'all. We'll see. I am excited for those games. Let's see what else. Cameron Grant, welcome to the stream, Cameron. How you doing? Getting ready for another year, the Dynasty League. Cam says, knew that was coming. This is the same guy that said Quentin Nelson should win MVP every year. That was a lot. That was a classic take I had loaded up back in the day. And it was Offensive Player of the Year for the record, but I might have been a little bit too big-brained with that one. I'll give you that. But hey, to be fair, there was a time where Quentin Nelson might have been considered the best offensive player in the league. My opinion. But welcome to the stream, Cam. How you doing? Ted says, unsung hero of all sports is football offensive line. Absolutely. Hey, as a Vikings fan, I've seen a lot of rough offensive lines in my day. All right, I'm going to take a swig of coffee here, and then we'll dive in. Finally, I've been all over the place. This has been a very active stream, I got to say. Active chat. I'm loving it. All right. So, week 1, let's just do it. Let's start with Buccaneers-Vikings. So if any of you watched my previous stream, my season preview, I said, as we have Justin Jefferson talking, we'll talk about the Jefferson contract situation. Vikings are 4.5-point favorites. Every year, week 1, it seems like there's an upset where people are like, whoa, like what happened? Maybe a team with high expectations or they're in the playoffs last year. They kind of come out flat. I think about Texans versus Colts last year. The Colts got Matt Ryan, high expectations. And I believe they ended up tying, did they not? Year before that, the Packers got smoked by the Saints in Jacksonville because of the hurricane. And to be honest, this is my upset pick for week 1. And again, I promise you, I don't hate the Vikings. This isn't like a Frank the Tank situation where I'm like, oh, the Vikings are going to go 0-17, I think Tampa Bay is a nightmare matchup for the Vikings. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. Tampa's 2 biggest strengths just happen to go against the Vikings' 2 biggest weaknesses. Tampa's biggest strength on offense is their wide receivers. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, even like Russell Gage is a pretty solid option. And they have like a new guy there too. I can't remember his name, but he's pretty fast. Apparently he's going to play in the slot for them. Going up against the Vikings corners, who were dreadful last year and might be worse this year. They lose Patrick Peterson. They lose Duke Shelley, who were probably their two best corners. They bring in Byron Murphy, but he's more of a nickel guy. You know, he's a smaller guy. He played a lot of snaps in the slot last year. The big thing I'm worried about on offense is I could see Mike Evans having a very, very big game if he's going up against Andrew Booth or a Caleb Evans, especially in a Brian Flores defense, which I think all Vikings fans are excited about. But it's a defense that puts a lot on the corners. And with how many blitzes they run, the corners really have to hold their own in man coverage. Usually it's one-on-one. And I could see it being ugly to start with how inexperienced the Vikings corners are. And this is one heck of a test right away. It can be easy to look at Baker Mayfield and be like, oh, like Baker's just so bad. Like the Buccaneers are pushovers. They're really not. They have a good team outside of quarterback. And even with Baker, if you have Mike Evans one-on-one against an inferior corner, like if you have that mismatch, he's going to find it. I don't know. Like just throw it up to Mike Evans. Maybe he gets like a 60-yard touchdown. I could see a world where Mike Evans goes for like 150 and 2 touchdowns today. That is the player on offense that I'm without a doubt the most worried about. I know he's got the contract thing going on, but he should play. That is what I'm worried about. And then on defense, I would say the Buccaneers' biggest strength, which overall their defense is really good, but they can really get pressure on the interior. This is a team that has some excellent interior defensive linemen. Vita Vea, obviously. They draft Kalijah Kancey, who I'm really excited to see. They also have Devin White, who can blitz up the middle pretty well. Logan Hall is there. And they're going up against a Vikings interior offensive line that was really, really bad last season. Ed Ingram, the rookie guard out of LSU, well, he's a rookie last year, now it's his second year, led the NFL in pressures allowed. Ezra Cleveland, the Vikings' other guard, I believe was 4th. That is really concerning. And Kirk Cousins is a quarterback, similar to Jared Goff, who doesn't really do well when the play breaks down and he has to move around. And when you have the pocket collapsing from the inside instead of guys coming from the edge, all of a sudden Kirk can't really step up in the pocket and like step into his throws like he likes to. Now you're looking at, you have to like roll out and throw on the run, and that's just not something he's very comfortable with. We've seen a lot of games for the Vikings go south when Kirk gets hit a lot, and especially up the middle. And I could see that happening again today. I think that's Tampa's key to victory is, can they get the ball to Mike Evans, Chris Godwin? Can they get a few big plays on offense against a defense that gives up a lot of big plays? And on defense, can they hit Kirk? I don't know. Gabe says, Eric, I'm posting inactives at 11:30 if you want to check it out. I will. I'm actually really curious to see who's playing and who's not. I know the Vikings are fairly healthy right now, so that's good. I mean, a lot is going to change. Players are going to get hurt as soon as the games start, and it's unfortunate, but it's a reality. But we'll see. Ted says Vikings by 10. I hope so, man. Again, I'm not rooting for this. I hope so. But we'll see. I think it's going to be a close game. But that's my piece on how the Buccaneers can upset the Vikings. It's also in Minnesota, too. I mean, everything points to the Vikings winning. But if I had to pick one upset, I would honestly pick this game. Prediction for Rachaad White this game. That's another thing with the Vikings is their run defense is concerning a little bit. They lost Dalvin Tomlinson in the offseason, which I don't think a lot of people are talking about. You know, Dalvin Tomlinson isn't like a superstar, but he's really good at what he does. He's a big interior defensive lineman that plays well against the run. He just takes up space. And the Vikings didn't really do anything to replace him, and they have smaller linebackers behind him. I would like to see how Ivan Pace plays. He had an awesome preseason. He was awesome throughout camp. Undrafted rookie free agent that is going to be starting week 1. You almost never see that. But outside of that, Brian Asamoah looking like he's going to get more playing time, but he's a really small linebacker, speedier guy, more of a coverage archetype. The Vikings' run defense is a little concerning, too. I mean, the defense just in general was not good last year. Brian Flores should help make it better. I could see Rachaad White going for like 60 yards maybe. I do think the Bucs are going to try and run the ball a lot more than they did last year because they did not run it at all last year and it really hurt them. I think Rachaad White will be solid. I don't think he's going to like break the internet or anything, but he'll be solid. He'll be a good, honest back. But, all right, so before I make my official score pick, here's one thing I'm watching from each team. So starting with the Vikings, the one thing I'm really watching for is how much are they going to spread the ball around on offense? If you guys watched my fantasy stream, you'll know that I had the first overall pick in one of my leagues, and I did not take Justin Jefferson. And the reason I didn't do that is because I really think the Vikings are going to share the wealth a little bit this year while passing the ball. They draft Jordan Addison in the first round. They just signed TJ Hawkinson to a big contract. KJ Osborne is still there. Like, there's a lot of guys that can make plays in this passing attack. And I look at how the season ended for the Vikings last year. Jefferson still had a few really good games, and this is not me like questioning Justin Jefferson's ability. I honestly think he's the best receiver in the NFL. But there just got to be so much attention on him, and Adam Thielen was getting really good looks, but he couldn't really do a lot to take advantage of it. And so I wonder if we're still going to see that approach. Maybe Jordan Addison kind of unlocks the defense a little bit. He gets more favorable matchups. Maybe TJ Hawkinson continues to produce like he does. I mean, in the Vikings' playoff loss to the Giants, Jefferson had one catch in the second half. Like, teams are doing everything they can to take him away. And I think the Vikings realize that, and that's why they went out and they drafted a wide receiver in the first round. So I'm curious to see who is going to get how many targets. Like, I could see TJ Hawkinson getting like 10 targets. I could see like Jordan Addison getting like 8. Jefferson is still going to get his fair share, obviously, but I think this is a team that's built to spread the ball around a little bit more. And for the Buccaneers, I hinted at this earlier. I'm very curious to see what the play calls are on offense. They have a new offensive coordinator, Dave Canales. He came over from Seattle. He was Geno Smith's QB coach last year. Obviously did a fantastic job. He's never called plays before. So I'm curious to see, I mean, they go from Byron Leftwich, who was serving under Bruce Arians, and, it was a lot of downfield passing, vertical attack stuff, not really running the ball. Are they going to switch that up? I feel like with Baker at quarterback, they kind of have to. I think we're going to see a much more balanced Buccaneers offense. They are going to try and run the ball a little bit more, but they'll still take their shots when they're there. Mike Evans is one of the best big play wide receivers in the NFL. You kind of have to take advantage of it. But I'm curious to see what the play breakdown is going to be. I feel like it's going to be a little bit closer to 50-50. I don't have the actual numbers, but watching the Buccaneers last year, it felt like it was like 75-25 pass run. It was insane. That was one of the most imbalanced offenses I've ever seen. So that's what I'm watching for from these two teams. My score prediction, I'm going to say Buccaneers win 27-24. Again, I'm not rooting for it, but that's my prediction. Bucs win 27-24. Let's move on to another good one. First, we'll check the chat. Wondering how you're going to spend 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. What do you do to prepare? I have just been mentally preparing myself. I've been preparing myself for this day for a very long time. To be honest, I'm just going to probably be parked on my couch, pretty chill day. Unfortunately, Christine is not doing too well right now, not feeling so well, so we're just going to be taking it easy, laying low, but we'll be watching some football, that's for sure. And then at some point, I'll have to tackle my schoolwork, because for those that don't know, I am still a student, actually, over at the University of Georgia, hence I always forget what side it's on, hence the helmet back there. So I'll have to get on that some, too, but it's going to be a pretty chill day. One of the most chill week ones that I've had in a while. But I'm sure there will be stuff going on at some point throughout the season, so I'm very excited for that too. Speaking of stuff going on, let's talk about Panthers-Falcons. But first, hold on. Sorry, I'm all over the place. ADHD. It's 10:33 in the morning. We're still waking up, but Baker was 14 for 15 in preseason. He's going to be focused, and hope she feels better soon. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Panthers, Falcons. Here we go. All right, this is low-key one of the games of the week for me. I am excited for this one. I've got a lot writing on this game. So, for those that follow me on Twitter, if you don't, go follow me at Dr. Pigskin on Twitter. I'm not calling it X. I have not updated the app or anything. We ain't rocking with Elon. But anyways, Panthers Falcons. This is a very important week 1 game. This could be a deciding game in a very tightly packed divisional race. It's in Atlanta. Falcons are 3.5-point favorites. James says, "Happy game day, Eric. Upset of the day." I said it before. Happy game day to you too, by the way. Bucks over Vikings. That's my upset. But here's another upset right here. I'm taking the Panthers. I am on the Panthers train. There's a lot of people that are kind of writing off the Panthers. I feel like the Twitter hive mind has taken over and decided that the Panthers are bad. And to quote a wise man named Lee Corso, not so fast. Hold on a sec. Carolina Panthers still have, in my opinion, a pretty good-looking team. And we'll talk about the Falcons. This is not Falcons disrespect. I like what the Falcons have going on, especially on offense. But let's start with the Panthers. I guess one day we all just woke up and decided that the Panthers' offensive line is bad, and it's because they had like a few bad moments in the preseason. You know, I went back and I saw some of the pressures. Like, believe it or not, I did not watch every single minute of every Panthers preseason game. But I went back and saw some of them, and yeah, Bryce Young got hit a lot. Some of that was kind of on him. Like, he had time in the pocket on some of the times that he got hit. I don't know. This is a Panthers offensive line that was pretty good last year, especially run blocking. And I just am not ready to call it a bad unit or a liability based off of preseason games. I mean, remember when Jamar Chase dropped like 5 passes in the preseason and he was the worst draft pick ever? I don't know. I would like to see them play an actual game first. I do recognize that the Panthers line is pretty thin. There's not a lot of depth. You could say that about most offensive lines. But the lasting image that I have of this Panthers offensive line was against the Lions last year. A big game for both teams who were still fighting for their playoff lives. And the Panthers offensive line dominated. They ran for like 300 yards on the Lions. So, I don't know. They've got talented players. They put a lot into it over the past few years with some high draft picks. I still think that this unit is pretty good. I could be proven wrong. Like, I am really sticking my neck out for the Panthers here. This could age poorly, as Oscar is hinting at, freezing cold takes. But if you follow me on Twitter, you'll see that I picked the Panthers as my division winner. And it's a very, very gutsy pick. Like, I recognize I'm pulling up from deep here. But you have to acknowledge that this team does have a lot of upside. When you look at the offense, Bryce Young comes in, immediate upgrade at quarterback. They actually played pretty well with Sam Darnold last year. They went 4-2 when Darnold played. But Bryce Young is an upgrade at quarterback. He's definitely the most pro-ready of the rookie quarterbacks. I feel like he'll have the easiest learning curve, if that makes sense. Miles Sanders, if you watch my fantasy stream, you know how I feel about Miles Sanders. I think he's a pretty good player, and again, in a favorable situation. Definitely the scariest part is the wide receivers. Like, I will be fully honest. This might be like the worst wide receiver core in the NFL. Like, this is pretty bad. Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, who's out, Jonathan Mingo, Terrace Marshall Jr., Laviska Shenault, Amir Smith-Marset. Oh, did they just get him? Interesting. I actually kind of like Amir Smith-Marset. Not as a starter, maybe, but as a good depth piece. And then you have like Hayden Hurst, Ian Thomas, Tommy Tremble at tight end. It's not a good unit of pass catchers. Like, it might be the worst in the NFL. I will definitely give you that. I don't know. Ike Ekwonu, he's been very up and down. He definitely trended up towards the end of last season, though. I feel like he played his best football at the end of last year. He did have a bad preseason, though. So there is a lot riding on him. But, like, Brady Christensen is pretty good. Bradley Bozeman's pretty good. Taylor Moton's pretty good. Like, this is not a bad offensive line, in my opinion. I could be proven wrong, but just based off what I saw last year when the games mattered, they were not bad. I think this is a team that could probably run the ball pretty well. And then on defense, man, this defense, it's a little top-heavy, but the upside is unbelievable. Brian Burns is going to play. You know, he's another guy that was like kind of holding out, wanted a new contract, didn't get it. He's still playing, one of the best edge rushers in the NFL. Derek Brown has started to come on a little bit. good on the interior. Shaq Thompson, I mean, he's a solid starter. He's not like anything to write home about. Frankie Louvu, probably one of the most underrated players in the NFL. He does a little bit of everything. He plays like inside linebacker really well. Not a flashy guy, but you know, Justin Houston, who I like forget is on this team. I will say Panthers' biggest weakness is definitely corner outside of J.C. Horn. J.C. Horn is a really good corner, but you're really counting on him to like hold things down. The secondary is hit or miss outside of him. The safeties are fine. Dante Jackson at the other corner and like C.J. Henderson, that worries me a little bit. But you also have Jeremy Chin, who just kind of plays everywhere. He doesn't really have a position, but he's a good player. So I don't know. This is a Panthers team that has a very high upside defense, and the offense can be good enough. I think if Bryce Young and Frank Reich can be good enough to cover up the stink of the wide receivers, if the offensive line actually shows up and plays to their potential, I think this is a team that could win 9 or 10 games and could eke out the division. Again, a lot is riding on this game, and as I accidentally click on the Brooklyn Nets, you know, the Falcons have a very good thing going on right now. I do like this Falcons offense. I don't know. If the Panthers win, I might be a little insufferable. I'll be doing victory laps on Twitter if the Panthers win. I will be watching this game closely. Gabe says, you get major respect if the Panthers win. We'll see. Hey, if the Falcons win, feel free to dunk on me. Like, I've been talking about the Panthers all offseason, and it could all go up in smoke. We'll see. Oscar says, need a Falcons win and a Vikings loss for the culture. Ooh, I don't know about that. I would be in the trenches if that happened. It's possible. Dr. P misdiagnosed the Lions Chiefs, but he's spot on with the Bucks and the Panthers. Okay, here we go. Tough game for the Leos, and the Panthers left tackle was getting smoked. Young dude, but we will need to see if he improves. The team overall is much better than they get credit for. See, I disagree. Like, I think one day people just kind of woke up and got bored with the Panthers and like, you know what? No, they're actually the worst team in the division. I've seen a lot of people put the Panthers last in the South, which I don't know. That's a lot. But that's enough about the Panthers. Let's talk about the Falcons. The Falcons, they have a pretty exciting offense. I could see the Falcons putting up some points this year, even with Desmond Ridder at quarterback. Ridder, obviously unproven. He started 4 games last year. He was all right at best. He did show a few things, but he plays in a very quarterback-friendly offense between Arthur Smith as his play caller, a great offensive line. Like, there's no doubt that the Falcons' offensive line is great. They've earned that label, you know. Like, the Falcons' offensive line could have a bad preseason, but people will be like, whatever, because they're that good. Like, they've earned that respect. This is one of the best units in the NFL right here. Like, 1 through 5, all really good players. Bergeron is a rookie, obviously. We haven't seen much of him. But I don't know. They're going to open some holes. I'm really excited to see Bijan, obviously. Algier is still going to get the ball, in my opinion. Like, they're not just going to cast him aside. Same with Cordero Patterson. Drake London really came on strong at the end of the year. Hopefully Kyle Pitts can actually get the ball now. Mariota couldn't hit him to save his life. I mean, I don't know. Like, the Falcons are kind of trying to be like the San Francisco 49ers. You could call them like the 48ers a little bit. Like, they're just like the light version of the 49ers with what they're doing on offense, how they like running the ball, all the pre-snap motion, emphasizing the trenches and the running game. I think the Falcons could potentially have the best offense in this division. However, what gives me pause about the Falcons is I feel a lot more confident that they will probably have the worst defense in the division. And they did make a lot of moves to improve it a little bit. Jesse Bates obviously was the big acquisition. They also got Bud Dupree, Caden Ellis, and David Onyemata, and Calais Campbell. You know, they've got some strength up the middle in the interior of the defensive line. But that pass rush, man, I'm sorry. Like, there's just no one in this pass rush coming off the edge that really scares me. Bud Dupree has not really amounted to much outside of Pittsburgh, who just seems to churn out edge rushers like they're nothing. And he's also on the wrong side of 30 now. I don't know how much that moves the needle for me. I mean, the secondary is pretty good. I do worry a little bit, again, similar to the Panthers, about corner outside of A.J. Terrell. You're really counting on him and the safeties to, like, cover up for who else they've got. Looks like Jeff Okuda's out. So The Falcons probably, you could argue the Falcons have the highest ceiling in this division, but they just, I don't know. I could be terribly wrong, but I just feel it in my bones that the Panthers are going to win this game. I don't know. We'll see. You know you love positionless football. I do, James. I mean, hey, there's no doubting that. I do love positionless football. For those that follow me on Twitter, I've hinted at it a little bit. But my next video, which should be coming out sometime soon, I'm still in the research process right now, but we're going to talk about positionless football. It's a pretty cool thing. Panthers don't have an O-line, rookie midget QB, no superstar wide receivers. They the worst in that division. See, I just don't know. I don't know, can we confidently say that they don't have an offensive line when they played pretty well last year? I'm not ready to jump to that conclusion based off preseason. Midget QB. Okay, so was Kyler Murray. So was Drew Brees. Yeah, you worry a little bit about the height. I'm probably more worried about Bryce Young's weight than his height, to be honest. If he does get hit hard, you do worry about injury. But, I mean, he can throw the football and he can move around in the pocket. He doesn't need to be 6'3" to do that. No superstar wide receivers. I will give you that. The wide receivers are rough. I will give you that. I don't know, man. I just don't think they're the worst team in this division. I think it still probably is Tampa. But it's close. Caden says, I don't know if it's true, but I saw a stat saying that QBs taken first overall are 0-13-1 in week 1. Are they? They might be. I'm trying to think of notable first overall quarterbacks. Andrew Luck lost on his debut to the Bears. I believe Cam Newton lost on his debut to the Cardinals. You might be right. I mean, I'm sure. Trevor Lawrence lost on his debut, didn't he? That is interesting. I did not know that. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. And Gabe says, bro, the Falcons' main ESPN page has Tom Brady celebrating. That is so wrong. Tough. A lot of people don't like talking about that. Certain combination of numbers. That's all I'm going to say. But, all right. So, things that I'm watching for, and then I'll make my pick for this game. It's 10:46, and we're only 2 games in. But you know what? We're cruising. Newton, Stafford, Winston, Murray tied. Yo, that's right. The Cardinals tied the Lions. Wow. I remember watching that game. There are a few people in this stream that watched that game with me. That's right. That's crazy. All right. Well, thank you for bringing that stat up. I did not know that. That's a fun fact. All right. So we'll start with the Falcons. What am I watching for with the Falcons? This is a boring answer. I want to watch Bijan. I don't care if he only gets 15 carries today. I just want to see him play football, man. I've got a video on Bijan Robinson. It's no secret that I've loved him. Not a very hot take. He's one of the best running back prospects ever, and now he's playing behind one of the best offensive lines in the league. I just want to see him play. He is a dark horse offensive player of the year candidate, in my opinion. And, I want to see, what sort of alignments and personnel groupings the Falcons come out with. We talked about positionless football a little bit. Another Falcons take I have, and we might even see it today. I think the Falcons will run a play where they have Bijan, Tyler Algier, and Cordero Patterson all on the field at the same time. And it's going to put defenses in a mental pretzel, and it's going to be awesome. So I'm looking forward to that. I want to see this Falcons offense, but specifically Bijan in the running game. And for the Panthers, you could go a few different routes here. You want to see Bryce Young, how he does in his NFL debut. But really, I think the biggest thing, I've talked about a lot already, I want to watch this offensive line. I want to see how much of the preseason was real, if they really do have concerns up front, or if it's business as usual. I will be watching this Falcons offensive line. They have Panthers offensive line. They have an interesting test week 1. They don't have to worry about much on the edge. I talked about Falcons edge rushers are a little weak. The interior's not bad, though. David Onyemata, Calais Campbell, Grady Jarrett. It's going to be a lot on the center and those guards. So we'll see how they hold up, and we'll see if Bryce can deal with interior pressure maybe a little bit. On the edges, they should be fine, though. And if we're worried about their left tackle, Ike Ekwonu, he has a good warm-up game. He doesn't have to go up against TJ Watt or anything. But now I want some pretzels. Oh, pretzels are good, aren't they? Especially those soft-baked pretzels at UGA football games. So peculiar. Mary did the best with the tie, if that stat is true. It is so weird. I'll have to go back and look. Maybe maybe after the stream I can go research it and like tweet it out or something. But oh yeah, Bijan is going to be so fun to watch. Could be the best back in the league by the end of the year. Probably even before that. He really could be. Like, he really just is that good. As a fan of football, and again, like, I'll just clear the air now for those that might not know me, Obviously, I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan, but I'm a fan of football. And you know what? Sometimes you just got to put aside your personal fandoms and just enjoy the game. And I don't hate the Falcons. I don't really hate any team. Obviously, there are some teams where it's, like, fun to root against them. But, like, I don't even hate the Packers. Like, I don't, like, prey on like them like just failing as an organization or anything. Like, there's stuff to be excited about for every team is what I'm trying to say. Dots. Shout out Dots Pretzels, man. If you know, you know. Shout out North Dakota. Great state. All right. Score prediction. Panthers Falcons. Give me Panthers 23-20. I don't know. It might be an ugly, grinded out kind of game. I think that's how the Panthers are going to have to win. If they could get pressure on Desmond Ridder, Brian Burns can have a big game. J.C. Horn is going to have to do really well. The Panthers' interior defensive line is going to have to really show up against this Falcons running game. I think both teams are going to try and run the ball a lot. I think the Panthers are going to try and run just as much as the Falcons. Give me Panthers 23-20. Let's go. All right. Next game. Keep pounding, baby. Anything for Clicks says, I hate Dallas. That seems to be a common sentiment amongst NFL fans. I kind of like the Cowboys. I don't know. I think the NFL is more fun when the Cowboys are good. It's fun, and I get, they get talked about too much maybe. Maybe there's too much attention on them. But isn't it kind of fun when you, turn on Sunday Night Football and Jerry World is rocking and the Cowboys fans are up? I don't know. I think it makes the sport more fun. That's just my opinion, though. I mean, if you're a divisional rival or even if they just rub you the wrong way, I get it, but I like watching. Ted says Falcons 21-10. Whoa, okay. Dude, if the Falcons hold the Panthers 10 points, if the Falcons defense holds a team to 10 points, I will be aboard the Falcons train. If they can do that, I will buy the Falcons. I will tell you that. Anything for Clisks asks, is Burns playing today or is he holding out? So the interesting thing is that he's holding in. If any of you guys listen to the Around the NFL podcast, that was a term that was coined by Greg Rosenthal. He wants a new contract, but he's playing, which is kind of interesting. You think he might lose a little bit of leverage, but he does plan to play. That's what I read on Twitter this morning. So that is interesting. If Burns wasn't playing, I would definitely pick the Falcons because the Panthers' pass rush is a little top-heavy, and it starts to get a little sketchy after Burns, but I do believe he plans to play, which is very interesting. Good sportsmanship. Everyone is a human being, and it's all about good fun, not hate or misfortune. I like you, Ted. I like your attitude, man. I'm liking this positivity. I'm liking the vibes here. You know what? This is a good, fun channel right here. We just love the sport of football. That's what it's all about, All right. Low-key Ted is cooking right now. Yes, he is. Dude, I'm loving this. This is awesome. Thank you guys for watching, by the way. We're about an hour in. This has been the most active stream I've ever had. Some of you might be new from my last video, and if you are, thank you so much for watching. I've got a lot of exciting stuff planned for this season. Let's have a football season, ladies and gentlemen. All right, next game, Bengals-Browns. Another divisional game. We've got some divisional games week 1. Some people have mixed feelings about it. It does add a little pop and juice to week 1, though. And this is an interesting game. The Bengals come in as a team with Super Bowl expectations, especially after just paying Joe Burrow. You kind of feel like the clock is ticking a little bit. Salary cap and all that. If you watch my last video, nothing lasts forever. The team you got won't be the same next year. And then they're going up against the Cleveland Browns, who quietly might be a very, very, very good football team, but a lot of it hinges on their quarterback. So, what am I watching for in this game? Well, for the Browns, I'm curious to see how Deshaun Watson plays. Now, I will say, I don't hate anyone, but let's just say I don't exactly enjoy Deshaun Watson, and we'll leave it at that. However, if I'm going to be objective and honest, I really don't think there's any possible way he can possibly be as bad as he was last year. I mean, what? He was suspended 11 games. He couldn't even be in the team facility. He wasn't practicing with them. It's a new team. He hadn't played football in so long. Like, there's just no way he can be as bad as he was last year because he was awful down the stretch. He was one of the worst quarterbacks in the league when he played last season. So I don't think he can just be at that level again. Like, he should be at least average, right? But if you look at this Browns team, you want to talk about a team that quietly made some good moves. I mean, if Deshaun Watson can play at a high level, this is a very, very, very dangerous team. Nick Chubb, you could argue, is the best running back in the NFL, running behind a very strong offensive line. You know me, I love my running games. You know, good old-fashioned, hard-nosed football. This team plays that brand of football. Amari Cooper, who I feel like didn't get the credit he deserved last year. Amari Cooper had a great season last year, and he did that with a very interesting topsy-turvy quarterback situation. Amari Cooper is still a very good football player. I think he's a good wide receiver one. He's not like a superstar, but look at that, like 78 catches, almost 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, and he did that with Brissett and Watson, who was playing at a poor level. He's a good player. He's a good wide receiver one. Elijah Moore, we're still waiting on the breakout. We'll see about that. Donovan Peoples-Jones, good big play threat. And David Njoku, who's learned how to block. David Njoku's like an honest-to-goodness tight end now. Like he does a little bit of everything. Go watch David Njoku block today. He can block now. He's putting guys on their backs. And this defense, the Browns really addressed their big concern, and that was the defensive front outside of Myles Garrett. They bring in the aforementioned Dalvin Tomlinson. They bring in Zadarius Smith. And all of a sudden, this is a very fearsome-looking defensive line. They also got Okoronkwo, I butchered his name, who every like football hipster, every football like podcast and like football writer, they love him. I'll be honest, I haven't watched a lot of him, but everyone seems to love him. And then Shelby Harris, a good, dependable veteran. This is a pretty good-looking defense. They also added Juan Thornhill, who I really like. I don't know. This is a pretty good-looking team. Now, are they good enough to beat the Bengals, though? The Bengals, who you could argue are maybe even like a top 3 team. Anything for clicks says Browns 28-17. This is an interesting, like, you could definitely put the Bengals on upset watch, especially with the game being in Cleveland. I don't know, though. That's tough. I mean, this is one of those games where I don't really feel strongly about either team winning, so I'm just going to probably lean the favorite. If the Browns can get pressure on Burrow, which is possible, the Bengals' offensive line has been better. You know, they've made some good moves, and Burrow's also better about just getting the ball out faster now. But, I mean, Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith, you're looking at maybe one of the best edge rusher duos in the NFL. Like, they could definitely have their way and get some pressure. I'm going to lean Bengals here. I don't know. Bengals are embarrassed from week 1 last year. Mad about how the season turned out in the playoffs, too. They're going to win 35-20. I would probably lean closer to that than a Browns upset. I think maybe one of the biggest things to watch out for is the Bengals wide receivers versus the Browns defensive backs. Denzel Ward is a very good player. I don't think he had his best season last year. I think Denzel Ward can be better than he was last year. And I'll be interested to see who he's following. I mean, obviously the Bengals have a deep arsenal of weapons on offense. I don't know. I would lean the Bengals. I mean, that's kind of a boring pick, but for the things to watch out for each team, for the Browns, it's definitely that defensive line. I want to see Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith and Shelby Harris and Dalvin Tomlinson. I want to see how they perform. They also added Jim Schwartz to their coaching staff, too. I believe he's their defensive coordinator. So I could see the Browns getting a lot of sacks this year. I am curious to see how this new-look Browns defense is. That's what I'm watching for Cleveland. And for the Bengals, I'll be honest, I did not prepare these beforehand. I'm just kind of doing these off the top. But for the Bengals, I'm curious to see how their running game looks. Joe Mixon has had some troubles this offseason again, and there's also contract talks with him. Looks like he is going to play. Chase Brown is an interesting player to watch behind him. I added Chase Brown in my Dynasty League. I don't know. It's something. But The Bengals actually ran the ball pretty well last year, and they lose Samaje Perine, who was really good when Mixon got hurt. So I do wonder if they can keep up that level on the ground again, because that was a very underrated aspect of their game. They also have a new left tackle, Orlando Brown, which I completely forgot about. To be honest, I think Orlando Brown Jr. is a little overrated. I think he's much better as a right tackle than a left tackle. He also, you want to talk about linemen giving up a lot of pressures. Orlando Brown Jr. gave up a lot of pressures last year for the Chiefs. He was getting beat. I still think he's like a starting quality player. I don't think he's like a star left tackle, though, like some people think. But he should help. So I don't know. I'm curious to see how this line holds up with a few new faces, and if the Bengals can keep their running game going like they did last year, because that was a big part of their game. I'll go Bengals 28-20. We'll do it. 28-20 Bengals. All right, third game in. Let's check the chat, see how we're doing. I've been under a ship. Burrow's availability for this game is... Oh, let me see, actually. I mean, he's going to play, right? Like, there's no way. I feel like we would have heard about this by now. No one has even, like, said anything. Like, you know, he signed the contract. He's going to play. I know he had his injury things in this offseason, but he should play. I would be shocked if he didn't. If you're a fan of the team, put in the chat so the doctor can jump to that game. Be prepared for brutal honesty. Hey, I'll be honest. I won't be mean, though. That's my thing. At least I'll try not to be. I might make a joke or two, but anyways. All right. Next game. Jags, Colts. This might be one of the uglier games of week one, in my opinion. I've talked about the Jaguars plenty on this channel. Jaguars are 4.5-point favorites on the road. I think the Jags cover pretty comfortably. All right, so I'm very excited for this Jags team. I think they could be a legit contender in the AFC. They're maybe not quite at the level of like the Chiefs or the Bills or the Bengals, but they're right there. This is a good-looking football team. I own Trevor Lawrence in a few fantasy leagues, and I've also got some money on Trevor Lawrence today. His line for passing yards is at 256.5, I believe. I think he hits that pretty easily. Obviously, I really want to see Calvin Ridley on a new team. And this Colts secondary is not very good or experienced. You want to talk about rough corner rooms. The Indianapolis Colts might have one of the worst looking secondaries in the NFL. I could see the Jaguars putting up a lot of points today. Ted agrees with me. He says Jags for sure, 28-3. I'm going to say more than that. I think if there's one team that can put up 40 in week one, it might be the Jags, with how good their offense looks and just how rough this secondary looks. I mean, Dallas Flowers and Darrell Baker Jr. are going to be going up against Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley and Zay Jones. I almost said Zay Flowers. And Evan Ingram. Shaq Leonard might play. I think his status is up in the air. The front is not bad. DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart are really good defensive tackles. But this secondary, man, like really outside of Julian Blackmon, there's just not much there. I really think this Jags passing offense is going to have their way with the Colts. I have been all aboard the Jags wagon all offseason. I've been fully Jaguar pilled. I think they win easily. I'm gonna say Jags 38, Colts 17. Now, what am I watching for in this game? What excites me? What am I going to be watching from each team? Well, for the Colts, I mean, there's one easy answer. Come on. It's Anthony Richardson. I want to see how Anthony Richardson looks in the NFL. The idea of him being good is so tantalizing. If you don't know, growing up, my all-time favorite player, non-Viking, was Cam Newton. I loved Cam Newton. He was just so much fun to watch. If Anthony Richardson is good, it's Cam all over again. Like, I really want to see Anthony Richardson be good. I am rooting for Anthony Richardson to be good because he's just, oh my goodness, like, he's just got everything. There's going to be ups and downs. I don't think he's going to be good right away, but let's let him play. I'm so happy the Colts are letting him start. I don't want to see another Trey Lance situation where Richardson doesn't really get a chance. So, I don't know. I'm very excited to watch Anthony Richardson. The good, the bad, and the ugly. All of it. I want to see it. I feel like we're going to get a few highlight reel plays from Richardson. We also might see a few uh-oh moments, but he's a rookie quarterback. It'll happen. The Colts aren't trying to win right now. They can take their time and be patient. Now for the Jaguars, what am I watching for? The easy answer would be to say Calvin Ridley. And don't get me wrong, I really want to see how Calvin Ridley looks in this passing offense, and I will be watching that. But here's something that I actually really want to see. I'm going to be watching Travon Walker. If you went and watched my Jags video, I had a whole segment dedicated to Travon Walker for it. I think he is a sneaky breakout candidate this year. Not a lot of people talked about him last year. He was the first overall pick. He didn't do much. He didn't get a lot of sacks. But if you go back and watch Travon Walker's rookie season, you'll see a few things. One, he is really, really good against the run. He was good against the run in college, which I watched a lot of him in college too, obviously being a UGA student. And he's been really good against the run in the NFL. Like the Jaguars' run defense in every metric improved dramatically last year. And that's important to have in a division with Jonathan Taylor. Well, not right now, but Jonathan Taylor and Derrick Henry and Dameon Pierce. But two, he got a lot better at rushing the passer as the season went along. You know, again, his sack numbers don't jump out. But if you go back and you watch him and you look at his pressure numbers, he was getting a lot more pressure. He played his best football at the end of last season. You know, he learned a new position. He didn't really play what he's playing right now in the NFL. He didn't do that in college. He was a much different player. You know, that's just the way Kirby Smart runs his defense. So with a year of NFL experience, learning a new position, and just how freakishly athletic he is, and the fact that he showed improvement during the season, I could see Travon Walker getting a sack today against the Colts offensive line that's lost a lot of luster. I mean, this is a unit that a few years ago was regarded as the best in the NFL with my man Quentin Nelson, Offensive Player of the Year candidate. But they don't really have the juice like that anymore. This was not a good offensive line last year. So I think I could see Travon Walker having a pretty good game today, and he's a breakout candidate. I could see Travon Walker getting like 8-9 sacks this season. And with how good he is against the run, I don't know. I think he's a pretty good player. I'm not ready to call him a bust yet, so I want to see how Travon Walker plays. Caden says, since you bring it up, any locks for overs-unders? Well, I tell you what, Caden, once we're through previewing these games, we're going to get to the Docs locks, which I've got a few locks for overs-unders or lines, and I've got a few player props too. I will say I'm not sponsored, but we'll be using Prize Picks for this exercise. And hey, Prize Picks, if you're watching and you want someone to endorse you, you know, I'm right here, but also, I'm not a financial advisor. Don't gamble or bet any money that you're not willing to lose. I just want to throw that out there too. I'm not saying like, oh, go bet money, you know. Bet what you're comfortable losing. That's all I'm going to say. That's what I'm doing. So, but gambling is a little fun, isn't it? It's just a little fun. But yeah, Jaguars, Colts. I feel pretty good about the Jaguars winning this one. 38-20, I think is what I said. Something like that. I could see the Jaguars hanging 40 though. And if you want to talk about like a line, if you're in a state where you can bet on lines, I am not. I don't know, man. Jaguars 4.5. That looks really tasty. That's all I'm going to say. That looks pretty tasty. All right. More coffee. Gabe says, very responsible, Eric. You know, I learned from the best. It all started with Sterling Shepard. We don't talk about best bet, though. Top 5 all-time worst moments in my college life. 2 hours till kickoff indeed. Less than 2 hours at this point, man. I'm up and ready. I'm giddy. Oh, we're almost there. We are almost there. All right. Titans, Saints. Let's do this. This is a matchup that looks kind of boring on paper. Like this is one of those red zone games that you only see on red zone. However, there's a few things I want to see, right? DeAndre Hopkins makes his Titans debut. Derek Carr makes his Saints debut. And these are both teams that, while they're definitely not at the level that they were a few years ago, I think it's still fair to label them as playoff contenders. I'm not going to say like, oh, these are two playoff teams right here, but they could very well find themselves in the hunt at the end of the year. So this is a Saints team that is probably a little bit of a safer bet to win the South than the Panthers. I have the Saints finishing second. Derek Carr just has to be a massive upgrade at quarterback, right? I mean, I get Carr was not very good last year, but I just really don't think he and Josh McDaniels were a good match. The Saints have a lot of weapons that I really like. Rashid Shaheed, Chris Olave, Michael Thomas, if he can ever stay on the field. Offensive line is all right. Not as good as it once was, but they've still got some players. They just paid Cesar Ruiz a lot of money, which might have been a slight overpay, but, keep your guys, right? Obviously, Kamara's suspended. They do have Jamal Williams, so the running game might not be super explosive out of the gate, but, and even at this point, like, Kamara is not the player he once was either. The defense is interesting because it played really well last season, especially the second half of the year. They played some really good football. I mean, they were like, not even just against like anyone. Like, they played a good game against the Eagles. Granted, that was with Minshew, but still. They played a really good game against the 49ers. Like, this is a defense that has a lot of talent. Now, I am a little worried about this pass rush. Cam Jordan is another year older, and, the Falcons, a lot of the moves that they made were just taking guys from the Saints. They lose David Onyemata. They lose Marcus Davenport, who, RIP. I'm not sure if he's going to play week 1 or not. Disappointing. I wanted to see him play for the Vikings, but you're really counting on an old Cameron Jordan to carry the load rushing the passer, and that scares me a little bit. You're also hoping that the rookie, Brian Bresee, can step up a little bit. I don't know. A lot is riding on a really old guy and a really young guy, and that scares me a little bit. Linebackers are fine. Demario Davis is still playing at a really high level, although he's getting older too. And then the secondary is pretty good. I mean, it's like, this is not a bad defense, don't get me wrong. I just wonder if they're going to be as good this year as they've been in years past, because this has been a really good defense for a while now. And that just, I don't know. There's some concerns. The offense should be better, though. And then for the Titans, right, they bring in DeAndre Hopkins, who they desperately needed. I mean, that wide receiver core was looking putrid. Ryan Tannehill is still there, and he's a starting quality quarterback. Like, he's no pushover. You could feel decent about yourself running him out there. Derrick Henry is still holding up. I mean, he's just built different at this point. I don't know. People have been predicting his fall off for a little bit now, and he just keeps on going. The offensive line is pretty bad, though. That's a big misconception, I feel like, with the Titans. Like, people think of, like, Mike Vrabel's Titans, and they think of, like, good, hard-nosed team. They like to run the ball. Oh, they probably have a good offensive line. No, it's pretty bad. They did bring in Skoronski, who looks like he's going to play guard, which a lot of people wanted him to because of the shorter arms. But, oh boy, I don't know. However, the Titans' defense, they're kind of cooking with the defense a little bit. Jeffrey Simmons, Tyre Tart, Danico Autry, that is one heck of a front three. Harold Landry is back. They bring in Sean Murphy-Bunting. They've got great safeties. They're a pretty good defense. It's in New Orleans. Saints are a 3-point favorite. Ted says Saints got this, but it'll be close, 13-7. A lot of low-scoring predictions. That's kind of been the way the NFL's been trending, though, a little bit. Some lower-scoring games. Also says Rashid Shaheed went to the school where I got my bachelor's degree. Same with Damian Lillard. Weber State. No way. That's awesome. Go Weber State. Good old Weber State. I actually did not know he went to Weber State. That's pretty cool. I think they're still in the FCS, aren't they? I know that because North Dakota State, who is one of my college teams, I grew up in Fargo. They played Weber State back in 2014, and ESPN gave them an ultimatum, and they said all right, NDSU, if you win this game, then College Game Day will come to Fargo, and they did. That was pretty cool. I went to College Game Day twice in Fargo. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, I love the FCS. FCS is my favorite type of college football. I'm going to go with the Titans. I don't know. Give me the Titans on the road. I do agree it'll be a close game, probably a little bit more low scoring. I'm going to go Titans 21. No, not that low scoring. I'll go Titans 23, Saints 20. A lot of close games. I mean, that just goes to show, there's a lot of parity in the NFL this year. Now, what I'm watching for each team, I really want to see how Derek Carr looks. I do think there's a chance that Derek Carr can be pretty good this year. Now, pretty good probably isn't top 10, but he could get back to the level he was 2 years ago when the Raiders made the playoffs. Derek Carr had a pretty good season that year. Go look at his numbers. Like, he played pretty well, and that was amidst a bunch of turmoil with the coaching staff and everything, interim head coach. So I want to see how Derek Carr looks, and I want to see how Michael Thomas looks. Because when he played last year, he looked pretty good. Again, he does his thing. Great possession receiver. For the Titans, I want to see, I don't know. There's not too much interesting about the Titans. Here's what I'll say about the Titans. I want to see Chigo Okonkwo play football. If you watch this channel, if you know me, you know that Okonkwo is one of my favorite players in the NFL. He is very much like George Kittle, who's another one of my favorite players. He's a tight end that just does everything. He's a great blocker, good receiver, and when he gets the ball in his hands, that's when the real fun starts. I mean, he is just so good after the catch. He just bowls people over. I love this guy so much. I love watching him play football. I will unironically be watching this game for Chigo Okonkwo. Yes, FCS. Also, Teron Johnson from the Bills went there. Really? I did not know that. Oh, that's cool. You learn something new every day. Caden says, that's why they came to Fargo? Well, I mean, they came there because, NDSU was really good. I think that was just, I don't know, they just kind of said that. They had already came to Fargo the year before. The first year they came was 2013, the last year with Brock Jensen. But the Weber State year, that was the first year with Carson Wentz. And yeah, I remember my dad telling me, ESPN said, if NDSU wins, then they'll come. Because there was no other good college football game, the next week. So, what the heck? We'll go to Fargo. But yeah, true story. But yeah, all right. Saints and Titans. No offense, but that matchup is, it's all right. Here's a fun one. 49ers Steelers, a classic game. We're going to try and speed things up a little bit. It's 11:15. I've still got my locks and stuff. We're not even out of the 1 o'clock slate yet. But I'm going to drink some water because I'm running out of coffee. And believe it or not, talking at a high volume for an hour and 15 minutes is starting to do a number on my throat. So I'll be back in a sec. Hope everyone is still doing well on the stream. Looks like we got still 6 people in here. Can't complain about that. It's been a good Pigskin pregame show so far. We're chilling, having a good time. All right, 49ers Steelers. San Francisco is a 2-point favorite. And I actually kind of agree with that. Expectations are high for the Niners. They were a game away from the Super Bowl again last year. Very talented roster. You wonder about the quarterback situation a little bit. But I'll say this again, have you been paying attention for the past 4 years? It doesn't really matter who the 49ers have at quarterback. They're going to figure things out. However, this Steelers team, the AFC North as a whole has just gotten really good. This Steelers team improved a lot in this offseason. And you don't want to make too much out of preseason. But what I'll say is when the Steelers starters played in the preseason, they looked really good. I can't make too much out of it. I don't want to be hypocritical. They got their winning record again last year under Mike Tomlin. That's just how they do things. Like clockwork. I could see the Steelers upsetting the 49ers. Am I going to go as far to pick the Steelers over the 49ers? Ted thinks so. He says Steelers are going to win uber close, though, 21-20. That's not impossible, especially in Pittsburgh. You know what? No, I'm going to ride with you. I'm going to pick the Steelers for a Week 1 upset. In Heinz Field, I know they don't call it that anymore. Whatever, I'm still calling it Heinz Field. Renegade is going to be playing. The terrible towels are going to be waving. Let's go with the Steeler way, baby. You know what? I will take the Steelers. I'm going to say Pittsburgh wins 27-24. Henry says, morning, doctor. Happy first Sunday. Rise up. Good morning, Henry. How are things over in Colorado? Rise up? We'll see. I was talking about the Falcons a little bit earlier. I'm going to be rising up for that Falcons-Panthers game, though. I'll tell you that. We had a nice conversation on Twitter about that the other day. We'll see. I might be getting dunked on if the Falcons win. I'm fully prepared for that reality. Good morning to you, too. It's, I believe, 2 hours earlier over there. So it's 9:18 right now, if I'm not mistaken? Good old mountain time zone. Ted says, AFC North is the best division this year, to be honest. I would have to agree. top to bottom, all 4 of those teams could make the playoffs. AFC North is another fun division. Those northern divisions, man. Northern football. Gotta love it. All right. So, Steelers, 3-point win. That's what I'm saying. Now, what am I watching for each team? For the Steelers, I'm curious to see this offensive line. Offensive line has been a concern the past few years, but they've made a few moves. It looks like Broderick Jones is actually not going to start. He was a first-round pick. They also bring in Isaac Seumalo, which is a signing that I love. He was really good for the Eagles last year. Addresses a big need at guard. You know, if this line can be a little bit better, give Kenny Pickett some more time, I think Pickett could have a pretty solid year. Pickett was a lot better than I expected him to be, especially down the stretch. His numbers weren't the greatest, but he looked good. He made plays out of structure that I didn't think he was capable of making. I don't know. The line is one thing to watch, but this defense just might be so good. I mean, the corners are a little questionable. They had an interesting tactic of bringing in the Vikings corners, Patrick Peterson and Chandon Sullivan, which, Oscar, if you're still in here, shout out Chandon Sullivan. If you know, you know. The rookie, Joey Porter Jr., I mean, that's a fun pick, right? Playing where his dad played, that's always awesome. And again, I talked about the Steelers are an edge rushing factory. TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, one of the best duos in the league. And they got Marcus Golden, who I think is a pretty good player too. He could start on a lot of teams. This Steelers defense, even with maybe not the greatest corner room, I think could be like borderline top 5. So I want to see how they play. And then for the Niners, what are they going to do? Like, are they going to keep doing the stuff that they've been doing, or is there another counterpunch? One of the signature Kyle Shanahan-isms is the good old counterpunch, right? He runs his offense, a lot of pre-snap motion. We've seen a lot more positionless football with the 49ers. Emphasis on the running game. Does a really good job at getting guys open. But now it's been another offseason of teams watching what he did with Brock Purdy. And, you know, at this point, no one has been able to figure out Kyle Shanahan. Like, what he does is what he does. And, like, you know, when you run an outside zone running scheme and you get it going, like, you just can kind of run the ball and win. But are there any new wrinkles he's going to add this year? Because he's just like a mad scientist, always like scheming up different things, and like the defense will expect one thing and then he does like the complete opposite and it works brilliantly. So I'm going to be watching to see if Kyle Shanahan has anything new cooked up. You know, he's had a few months now to prepare for this game. Are we going to see anything maybe different from the 49ers that we haven't really seen before? And I don't know what that might be. You know, maybe he gets really crazy and like McCaffrey plays half of his snaps at wide receiver or something like that. I don't know. But I will be interested to see like what positions these players are lining up in. Like, is Kittle playing a lot of wide receiver? Is Juszczyk in the backfield a lot? Like, what are they going to do with Debo? So, and obviously like Purdy, you wonder how that elbow is doing too. That's a little concerning. I want to see Sam Darnold play for the 49ers at some point. That's all I'm going to say. But I'm going to go Pittsburgh in a close one. We'll go Pittsburgh 23-20. Ted says Steelers also usually highly perform week 1. They do, and that's a sign of a well-coached team. I mean, this is an excellent coaching matchup. I'll tell you this. Both of these teams are going to be really well coached. These are probably 2 of the 5 best head coaches in the NFL going at it. That is another thing just in general for this game that I'm going to be watching. I don't know. I love Mike Tomlin so much. He was with the Vikings for a little bit. Man, it would have been cool if the Vikings had him as head coach. Although I do really like KOC, but I respect the heck out of Mike Tomlin. He is a very good coach. He deserves all the credit in the world. He runs a great operation over there. All right, next game, Cardinals-Commanders. Oh, boy. The Arizona Cardinals are about to play some football. I think it is pretty clear what the Cardinals are trying to do here. They do not necessarily want to win. They have 2 first-round picks. They have their own and the Texans, and I think the Cardinals hope that both of them are very, very high up in the order. I don't know who is starting at quarterback for the Cardinals. I don't know if that's been confirmed yet, but they did get rid of the guy with the most experience in their depth chart in Colt McCoy. Oh, wait, no, they named Joshua Dobbs the starter, didn't they? So Joshua Dobbs gets to start over Clayton Tune, who I feel like we will still see at some point. But man, Joshua Dobbs is playing football in the NFL in the year of our Lord 2023. That'll be something. And again, I'm not trying to be mean, but if I'm going to be blatantly honest, there is really just not a lot to be excited about with this Cardinals team. I don't think that they'll go 0-17 because that's just really hard to do. They might win like 1 or 2 games, though. I think they are pretty comfortably the worst team in the NFL. Yeah, it's bad. I mean, they even have like a few good players like Budda Baker, Paris Johnson, who they drafted in the first round. DJ Humphries is a pretty good tackle, but there's just not a lot on this team. I feel like Jonathan Gannon is almost being set up to fail a little bit, like almost like the goal is that he's just going to coach 1 year and they're going to trot him out there and like this is not a serious team. I don't know. But I like what Therapy Disputes brings up because that's probably the biggest story with the Cardinals. And he asks, do you think they would really trade Kyler for Caleb Williams if he comes out this year? I think they should. And I'm actually someone that thinks Kyler is a pretty good quarterback. Now, there's a few caveats to that. He is injury prone. He's a little bit smaller. There's always questions about the attitude. But at the end of the day, he is a good football player. He's a very good quarterback. And when he's on and firing, which you'd like to see a little bit more consistently, but when he is on and firing, he plays at a very high level and he's a lot of fun to watch. There is definitely trade value for Kyler Murray. If you could get a first-round pick out of him, I think you do it because I will admit I don't watch a lot of college football. I really don't. I don't know. The NFL is my jam. I watch some because it's football and I just like football. I've watched a lot of USC, though, and that's because of Caleb Williams. He is just such a big draw. He is almost in like that Trevor Lawrence, Andrew Luck tier of prospect. I mean, he had another great game last night. He had more touchdowns than incompletions, right? Or he had as many. Like he had 2 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown. And he is Mahomes. And that's not me saying that like he's going to be as good as Mahomes, but really like that is his comp. That is who he plays like, is Mahomes. He is a magician. And he's probably a better runner than Mahomes. Like that is one of the biggest things that jumps out when I watch Caleb Williams is he is really, really fast. Like he is tough to catch in the open field. He is a great runner. So I think if you're the Cardinals, if you can get a 3rd first-round pick for Kyler Murray, you trade Kyler, right? Save a lot of money. Go get Caleb Williams on a cheaper contract for 5 years who might be better than Kyler pretty quickly. And then you have 2 other first-round picks to play with. I mean, like, if the Texans are bad, you could be looking at, like, getting, like, Caleb Williams and Brock Bowers, which would just be insane. I don't know. So that is the big thing with the Cardinals is like just how bad are they going to be? The thing I'm watching with the Cardinals though is probably Zaven Collins. This is not like a big news story or anything, but Zaven Collins is switching positions. He's playing defensive end this year. He was drafted as an off-ball linebacker. He's a bigger guy, you know. He kind of is built like a defensive end. I'm curious to see how and if that works. And then for the Commanders. This is a team that has some sneaky, scrappy potential. I mean, they have a disgusting defensive line. They have a good collection of wide receivers. They're going to be a tough out. I'm definitely going to be watching Sam Howell. I like that they're giving Sam Howell a chance. Why not, right? Let him cook. And if it doesn't work out, they have a very capable backup in Jacoby Brissett right behind him. But McLaurin, Dotson, Curtis Samuel, Logan Thomas, that's a really good group right there. Offensive line is, you'd like maybe a little bit more. Chris Paul. But the defensive line is incredible, top to bottom. Chase Young, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat. Unreal group of talent right there. Cameron Curl is a player I really like a lot, one of the more underrated players. And Derek Forrest. They have some good safeties. The corners are a little questionable. Kendall Fuller is still pretty good, but I don't know. Emmanuel Forbes is a rookie. They're going to expect a lot from him right away. There's a lot to like about this Commanders team. Now, they play in a very tough division, and I still think they'll probably finish last. I do think they'll take care of business here, though. I'm going to go Commanders win. We'll go 28-14. We'll go 2-touchdown win for the Commanders. They'll cover. 7-point line. I don't know. At home. New ownership. The vibes are good in Washington right now. That's not something you could say normally about the Washington football organization. But I don't know. Ted says, yeah, Commanders, but Arizona will make it interesting. 30-23. People are going to try their best to keep their job. Oh, absolutely. I mean, these are all human beings at the end of the day. Like, I feel like the organization, like the higher-ups, the executives, they know, they're self-aware this is a rebuild. The players on the field aren't just going to, like, lie down and take a beating. Obviously they're going to try and stuff. Unfortunately, this team just does not have a lot of talent. I think the Commanders take care of this one pretty easily. Gabe says, I love football. Me too. And Henry asks, can Kyler be a good fantasy option when he returns? I think he probably will play. Like, there's a lot of people saying, like, oh, they're just not going to let him play. Like, he could be back by November, and he'll probably play, because Kyler might be fighting for his job with the Cardinals. Depending on your quarterback situation, it doesn't hurt. And if you have the IR spot open, you might as well stash him away. I don't know. Like, you could do a lot worse. If he's good, you could win the league because of it. There's upside. It doesn't hurt. I bet you could get at least 2 first-rounders for Kyler at the minimum. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, if you could really sell a team on Kyler, I think it's possible. I mean, Carson Wentz got a first-round pick a few years ago. There are a few teams that I could see in the quarterback market next offseason, and I don't know, if they're desperate and they feel like they can't trade up in the draft, Kyler Murray is probably the next best option. It's possible. If you could get 2 first-round picks for Kyler, you have to take that. I don't know. The Cardinals might be onto something, though. For as much as I've piled on about the Cardinals being bad now, this kind of ties in with my last video. With the way the NFL is set up and how good young players are now, and with how many draft picks the Cardinals have, if they draft well, I could see the Cardinals being a pretty good team in like 2-3 years. Like, that is very realistic. They just need to draft well. They've got the picks. If they execute, they could be good pretty quickly. I see what they're cooking. I see the vision. I respect the Cardinals. Arizona would do it for Caleb. They did it before. Still hasn't worked out. They did. They literally traded Josh Rosen, or they just like gave up on Josh Rosen for Kyler. This is an organization that has literally done it before. That's a very good point, actually. I didn't even think about that. Shout out Ted. Stream MVP so far. He's been going off. Tyler says, predict stats for Scary Terry. I'm going to say Terry McLaurin. I will say 4 catches for 78 yards and a touchdown. I think he and Jahan Dotson. Well, I think McLaurin is still the better receiver. I think Dotson is going to see a lot of the ball this year. And I think when it's all said and done, their production will be similar. Still probably leaning Terry, but I don't know. Watch out I keep saying Deshaun. Jahan Dotson. Watch out for him. He's a good player. Gabe says, I know what it feels like to be at the bottom of the barrel wins-wise in a season. I hope there are some good stories. Yeah, I mean, you're a Lions fan, so I will say, for as much as like I pity myself for being a Vikings fan, the Vikings are usually never at the bottom. The Lions have been at the bottom, though, so I get it. Bucks versus Vikings inactives are now live on the site. Kalijah Canty is going to play and start. Cody Mauch also avoids being listed out with a back scare on Thursday. Well, let's go. Horns up for NDSU. Also horns up for Texas. They knocked off Bama last night. Horns up all around. The Horn teams are winning right now. We're about to get to another Horns team in a sec with the Texans. Gabe says, so Canty and Vea will be available. That's concerning for the Vikings. I'm not going to lie. We'll see. We'll see. All right, Texans-Ravens. We're going to start cooking here a little bit. This game, I don't think is going to be as big of a blowout as some people think. The Ravens are 9.5-point favorites. I think they could cover, but I think the Texans' defense could make this game close for a little bit. I actually kind of like this Houston defense. They made some good moves this offseason. They hired DeMeco Ryans, who I love. I actually wanted the Vikings to hire DeMeco Ryans when they were looking for a coach like in the last offseason after they got rid of Zimmer. I see the vision with Houston a little bit. Obviously, all eyes are going to be on C.J. Stroud, see how he does. But look at this defense for a sec. I mean, Will Anderson, they moved heaven and earth to go get him, which we'll see how that works out. But it was a gamble. I respect it. Jonathan Grenard is pretty good. Denzel Perriman, very underrated. He's not like your modern linebacker. He's more of an old-school thumper, but I really like the way he plays football. I don't know. I think DeMeco Ryans is going to have some fun with him. Derek Stingley Jr., obviously got overshadowed by Sauce Gardner and Tariq Woolen last year. He had his ups and his downs, but It's 1 year. I could definitely see him getting better. The upside is there. Jimmy Ward is out. Interesting. Did not know that. But that was a very quiet signing. Jimmy Ward's a great player. Jalen Petrie had a great year last year. This is a solid defense. I don't think teams are just going to waltz right in and put 30 on Houston effortlessly, The offense still has a lot of work to be done. Titus Howard going on the IR kind of stinks because otherwise, this offensive line is actually not bad. Laramie Tunsil, you could argue, is the best left tackle in football. The wide receivers are rough, though. They're up there with the Panthers for the worst wide receiver group in the NFL. Dameon Pierce is going to do his thing again. They're going to run him a lot, I feel like. I worry a lot more about this Texans offense than their defense. And for the Ravens, if you want to talk about, here's what I'll say. For the Texans, what I'm watching this defense. I want to see how DeMeco Ryans does in his first game as coach. I want to see how this defense plays, and maybe they can make it a game for a little bit. Maybe they can, even I don't know. I could see them being tied at halftime, and then Baltimore pulls away a little bit, but I could see this defense making things interesting. For the Ravens, it stinks that Mark Andrews probably isn't going to play. One, because I have him in a lot of fantasy leagues, but two, I really want to see this new look Ravens offense. I think everyone has been waiting to see it all off season. They get rid of Greg Roman. They bring in Todd Monken. If you want to talk about UGA, I've said this before. Todd Monken deserves so much credit for UGA going back-to-back in the national championship. He was a godsend for Georgia. I think he's a great offensive coordinator. He also quietly had a great passing attack in Tampa. Also, it says this game has started. That cannot possibly be right because it is 11:35. Anyways, Baltimore apparently has the ball right now at their own 25. The script is out. But Andrews is questionable. I don't think he's going to play. They bring in a lot of new receivers. Bateman is healthy again. Then they bring in Odell, Zay Flowers. Also Nelson Aguilar, which I actually didn't know that. Interesting. But I am definitely watching to see just how much the Ravens throw the ball. They've talked so much about spreading it out, slinging the ball around the yard. Lamar Jackson said he wants to throw for 6,000 yards, which I think obviously was said in jest, but still, could he throw for 4,000? Maybe. I want to see Lamar throw the ball a little bit because I think he's a good quarterback, and he can throw the ball. Let's stop this running back narrative. I picked up Isaiah Likely in all the leagues that I have Mark Andrews because, I don't know, he's the backup. He's actually a pretty good player too. But that is definitely what I'm watching. I want to see this Ravens offense. Just how much are they going to actually throw the ball? Defense was very good last year. They're without Marlon Humphrey, which is a little concerning for now. Rock Ya-Sin is good, but I like him more as a number 2. But the secondary overall is good when they're healthy. You really want to see someone step up on the edge, though, because they quietly have not had a very good pass rush for the past few years, and they let Justin Houston go, which was interesting. There's a lot riding on David Ojabo and Odafe Owe. One of those two guys really has to step up if this Ravens team is going to hit its full potential, which could happen. These are two very talented players. They've dealt with injuries and just being raw. So it could happen, but if you're the Ravens, you really need one of these two guys to step up. So that's the other thing I'm watching for is, can the young guys on the edge, can one of them step up and be a key contributor? Roquan Smith transformed this defense, though. Go look at the Ravens' defensive numbers after they got Roquan Smith. They were one of the best in the NFL. I'm going to go Ravens winning. I'll say Ravens win 35. They get a few scores late. It'll be close for the first half, but I'll say the Ravens pull away to win 35-21. Ted says Ravens, but I think it'll be weird. Not a close game, but an over-exaggerated win, like the 2012-2015 Packers. 42-24. All right. We've got some faith in the Ravens offense here. Let's see if it pays off. I don't know. But I don't think it's going to be like a slaughter like some people are thinking. All right, here we go. Welcome to the 4 o'clock window. We're starting off with a banger of a rivalry. I'm going to open up this tab, take a swig of water, and then we're going to dive into Packers-Bears. Here we go. All right. Packers versus Bears, maybe the most storied rivalry in the NFL. A battle as old as time. Two iconic franchises duking it out in Chicago, out at Soldier Field. The beginning of the Jordan Love era versus Justin Fields, trying to make it happen. The Bears, if you ask Bears fans, and if there's any Bears fans in here, again, I promise, like, even though I'm a Vikings fan, I'm not a Bears hater. I'm not trying to be mean. But there is some pretty high expectations for Chicago inside the Bears fandom. And I'm here to be a Debbie Downer and try and temper those a little bit. I still think this is probably the worst team in the division. I still think they probably finish fourth. They did make a lot of moves. You're hoping Justin Fields can take a step up. But this defense, I mean, there's just so many question marks and unprovens. The pass rush is abysmal. They did bring in Yannick Ngakoue, but in 2023, that doesn't move me as much as it would in 2018. He's also really bad against the run. And outside of that, I can't tell. I've lost track how many times I've said this stat on this channel during these streams, but the leading sacker for the Bears last season was Jaquan Brisker, their safety, with 4. I mean, and outside of adding Ngakoue, they did not do anything to fix their front 4. They put a lot of money into the linebacker position, which is interesting because, like, the cool, hip, analytical take these days is like, oh, linebackers don't matter. Which, if the Lions game was any indication, they kind of do. Like, the Lions linebackers played pretty well, and that was a big reason why they won the game. So I am interested to see that. Like, they bring in Tremaine Edmonds. That's the big signing. And he fits more of what Eberflus wants to do. He's really good in coverage. He's got those long arms. He can stay with the tight ends. And he should have an interesting matchup with Green Bay's tight ends, which they put a lot into that position this offseason. And then T.J. Edwards, who had a great season with the Eagles coming over. Secondary is all right. Jalen Johnson is a guy that I like. He hasn't fully taken the bull by the horns yet, but I could see him getting better again this year. He's very talented. Eddie Jackson really surprised me. He bounced back big time last year. Eddie Jackson had a rough go of it for a while. He had a big season back in like 2018 when the Bears made the playoffs, and he kind of fell off. But to his credit, he bounced back last year. He actually played some pretty good football. Then you've got Kyler Gordon, also got Tyreek Stevenson, so some youth in the corner room. Now, the biggest thing in this matchup is Christian Watson is out, I believe. Christian Watson is not playing, and this is big for a Packers team that already does not have a very good receiving core. So that's a little concerning. You know, they bring in Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft, who I talked about, the tight ends. Can Jordan Love play the guitar? How well is Jordan Love going to look? And that is the big question. Really, the quarterbacks are the question. And you could say that about every game, but this game in particular, how are the quarterbacks going to look? Is Jordan Love going to be good enough? And can Justin Fields take that next step? That is really the story of this game. And I gotta say, you know, I'm sorry, but especially since it's against the Bears too, I'm sorry. If Jordan Love has a good game today, that would actually be hilarious because I think the collective freakout around the NFL would just be so funny to watch. Like if Jordan Love goes out there and he has like 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, people are going to be like, oh no, like did the Packers really do it again? Did they really get another good quarterback? And especially against the Bears of all teams. It's not impossible. I actually liked what I saw from Jordan Love last season when he played. It wasn't much, but he's been waiting for a while now. He's just such a mystery. I do think it would be kind of funny if Jordan Love was good, at least for this game, and people just kind of freak out. Caden says Dobbs is greater than Jefferson. I don't know about that, man. He's going to be the wide receiver 1, though. We'll see. And a lot on the rookie Jaden Reed, too. I mean, I think the Packers are going to run the ball a lot. They're going to have to. They have a great running game. Offensive line has been the strength of this team for a while now. This is another unit that 1 through 5 is all really good. There's not really a weakness on this offensive line. Zach Tom is a player I really like. Watch out for Zach Tom, underrated right tackle. That's one of my takes of the day right there. And the defense on paper is really good. Now, I don't love the decision to keep Joe Barry at defensive coordinator. I think he did a lot of the things that Ed Donatel did for the Vikings last year. It was kind of frustrating to watch. They played a little too soft. If they can fix that a little bit, this is a very talented defense. This is a team that, like, could make the playoffs. I could see them messing around and making the playoffs. It would not shock me if the Packers finished above the Vikings in the division. I'll say that. Now, before I make my score prediction, Let's take a look at what chat is saying. Got some people talking in here. So let's see. I hate to say it, but I think it'll be a tie, 17-17. That's weird, but my impulse. But if you twisted my arm, Bears 20-17. I love the tie prediction. You know what? I could see it. That would actually be pretty funny if they tied. After all the talk and the build-up and the hype leading up to this game, if they had a low-scoring tie, that would be objectively hilarious. You know what, Ted? If they tie, I will give you something. Like, I will give you a gift. I don't know what it is. Like, who's your favorite team, Ted? I don't know if you said that in here or not. But maybe I'll get you like a hat or something if they tie, because that is an awesome prediction, and I respect the heck out of that. I'm actually really excited to see Reed and our tight end. I forgot what his name can do. Well, it's Reed, and then you've got Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft as the tight ends. I am interested to see what they do too. I think another thing to watch for the Packers is how is Matt LaFleur going to run this offense? Because Aaron Rodgers is gone now, and Rodgers famously didn't like all the stuff that LaFleur did. You know, it's a lot of the Shanahan-y stuff. Get to the line, see what the defense does, a lot of pre-snap motion, you know. Rodgers doesn't like that. He likes getting to the line quick, catching the defense off guard, maybe getting them jump, and then he doesn't like all that extra pre-snap motion stuff, which is actually pretty funny because Rodgers played some of the best football of his life under Matt LaFleur. And it's also funny that the Jets got rid of Mike LaFleur, Matt's brother, when they brought in Rodgers. Well, they did it before they got Rodgers and brought in Nathaniel Hackett, which I think is pretty clear that was just a recruiting tactic for Rodgers. But I don't know. I'm not going to predict a tie, unfortunately. But again, I will remember this. If they tie, you deserve something because that is awesome. I'm going to go Packers. I'm going to go Packers 24-20. A lot of close games. I don't know. Bears are a 1.5 point favorite at home, which I guess that means usually it's just like an even matchup and they get that 1.5 points for home field advantage. I just think the Packers are a better team, to be honest. I'm not sleeping on this Packers team. They're going to be in the playoff hunt right till the very end, and they could find themselves in the playoffs in a weaker NFC. All right, another divisional game, Raiders and Broncos. I'm excited for this Denver team, to be honest. I'm going to take another drink of water, but I've got a lot to talk about with the Broncos. I'm not sleeping on Denver. All right. So, both these teams were very disappointing last year. Sky-high expectations. Ted says, could anyone guess my team? I don't know if people can. Okay, well, with you saying that, I feel like it's going to be a more obscure team. I'm trying to think of, what fan base energy you give off. You are very chill, so, I don't know. Well, I mean, every fan base has chill fans and not so chill fans, but I don't know. You also seem to like lower scores. So I'm thinking more of a traditional team. This is fun. Let me think for a sec. I feel like I haven't talked about your team yet. Or maybe you have. I'm going to say you're a Giants fan. I don't know. I get Giants fan energy from you, and I mean that as a compliment. That's my guess. I think you're a New York Giants fan. We'll see. But anyways. Oh, Titans is a good guess, too. I could see that. All right. Raiders, Broncos. So, two teams are kind of disappointing. They both had high expectations. You know, Russell Wilson comes in, doesn't live up. Nathaniel Hackett is gone. Josh McDaniels had a rocky tenure. He's back for another year. We'll see how that goes. I like this Broncos team. I like what they did. They have quickly remade themselves. They bring in Sean Payton, who should be a massive upgrade at head coach. He's talked a big game. You know, the Broncos kind of have to be pretty good for all the talk he's talked. You know, and that's the Sean Payton experience. He'll run his mouth a little bit. He's a little cocky. The Vikings have some history with Sean Payton, as is well documented. But he can call an offense. I will say that. Even without Drew Brees, those Saints teams were still pretty good on offense. If you go look at the year was Taysom Hill and Teddy Bridgewater or Jameis Winston, they were still pretty good. So, I don't know. I'm really excited about this Denver running game. Javonte Williams is back from injury. He was excellent as a rookie, hard-nosed runner. Samaje Perine, very underrated signing. Much improved offensive line. And a defense that was really good last year. pretty good secondary. Justin Simmons, Kareem Jackson, Pat Surtain. I mean, they don't have any superstars outside of Surtain and Simmons, really, but it's a unit that has just consistently played well. I don't know. It's just something about like that Denver defense aura. as lame it is to chalk up to that. Also, Zach Allen was a pretty good signing. They got him from the Cardinals, I believe. So, it's a good, honest defense. They might not be like top 5, but they're not a liability, and they're closer to a strength than they are a liability. And this offense that can probably run the ball pretty well. I don't know. The reason I feel like they emphasize running the ball so much, and I talked about this before, but Russell Wilson is a quarterback that really struggled against too high safety looks, and that's really what's taken over the NFL. And so when Sean Payton came in, he pretty much said, all right, you know what? Fine. You're going to run too high safeties against Russell Wilson, try and take away the big plays? Sweet. We're going to run the ball on you. And then you're going to have to respect the run, and then we set up play action and get those deeper shots, and then we get Russell Wilson in a little bit more of a comfortable situation. I really think that's what they're going to do. They're going to run the ball a lot and do a lot of play action, get Wilson on the move, and try and hit those chunk plays. And I think it's going to work. I don't know. That is what I'm watching for, is a Sean Payton offense. How is he going to call this game? How much are the Broncos going to run the ball? And I'm curious to see Russell Wilson's stats off play action in this game. I think, especially against a weak Raiders secondary, I think Russell Wilson could have a good game. Like I don't know, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns maybe. I don't know, something like that. This Raiders defense has a very good pass rush, but outside of that, it's rough. The secondary looks wounded, to say the least. I don't know. The offense should be interesting. I am not down on Jimmy Garoppolo. Obviously, he's played with Josh McDaniels before. They've got great weapons. Josh Jacobs is back, thank goodness. They've got Zeus as their second back. If you know, you know. Offensive line is I could see this Raiders team being fairly fun to watch, but also winning like only 5 or 6 games. Like I don't think the Raiders have a very high upside this year because they've just got a few pronounced weaknesses. But they've got good receivers. They've got a quarterback that can do his job. They've got a good running back. And then they've got a few really fun players at pass rush. Like Max Crosby is a legit superstar. But I don't know. What I'll be watching for with the Raiders is, I don't know, how does Jimmy G look? And if he doesn't look good, do we see Aiden O'Connell? Because he's a guy that we've heard a lot about. If Jimmy G struggles first few games of the season, do we see Aiden O'Connell come in? It's not impossible. I do think Aiden O'Connell might make a start this year. I would put over-under starts for Aiden O'Connell at 1.5, and he might hit that. I don't know. Ted says, good guesses, but wrong. Keep going. Took 2 out of 32. I'll keep thinking. I don't know. Not the Giants, though. Interesting. I will say, I'm going to say the Texans. You know what? I'm going to say the Texans. Why not? Henry says, Russ could be a huge bounce-back candidate. I don't know if I believe, but he's in a similar position as Deshaun Watson in my head, ignoring the off-the-field stuff. It really is, because, again, Russell Wilson played poorly last year, but you just think, for a guy that's played at a high level for so long, he can't possibly be that bad again, right? There's just no way. I don't know. I don't think he's going to light the world on fire, but I think he's going to be a starting quality quarterback. And for a Denver team that's built the way they are now, they could win 8 or 9 games. They could sneak into the playoffs. I have them finishing second in this division. It's possible. But I'll say for score prediction, I'm going to get really weird. I'm going to say Broncos 25 and Raiders 19. Why not? I don't know. It's going to be one of those weird games. All right, moving on to Eagles-Patriots. Let's check the chat. Hot take incoming, Patrick Mahomes. So true, man. I get to see Patrick Mahomes play football in front of my own eyes in a few weeks, and I'm so excited. For those that don't know, I actually don't live up in the upper Midwest anymore. I'm a student at UGA, but I grew up in Fargo. But long story short, I'm going to be up in Fargo. One of my friends is getting married next month. And the day after his wedding just so happens to be the day that the Kansas City Chiefs make their first ever trip to US Bank Stadium. So me and my dad are going to that game, and I'm actually really excited for that. I get to see Patrick Mahomes play football. Hopefully Travis Kelce will be healthy by then too. So I get to see the greatest quarterback in the NFL go up against my favorite team. That's going to be awesome. The Vikings will probably lose, but it'll be a lot of fun. I like trying to go to at least one Vikings game every year. And it's been a while since I've been to US Bank. Ted says, it'll be a blowout. Las Vegas doesn't know what they're doing, 30-7. And Honoré fan, not my team, though. Soft spot for the Texans, 3 out of 32. Dang, man. All right, well, we're going to get there. But Las Vegas, they really don't seem to know what they're doing. That is an organization that I worry about a little bit. I don't know. All right, I'll say Dolphins next. That's my next guess. We're going to get to the Dolphins soon. Honestly, it could be one of those two teams, Dolphins or Chargers. But right now, we've got Eagles and Patriots. The Eagles are the favorite in this game. The Patriots are a trendy upset pick. I could see it. I actually have the Patriots in the playoffs, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But, you know, I do think the Eagles are still a better team. I also have the Eagles getting the wild card, which we'll talk about Dallas. But I don't know. This game will be close. But before we dive into that, would you rather the Vikings win the Super Bowl 2 times in the next 4 years or UGA football go on a 5-year championship streak with a UGA basketball March Madness victory? By victory, I mean the whole shebang. I feel like I'm being set up here. Yeah, I think it's a pretty easy answer for me. Don't get me wrong. I love UGA. That's my school. But I've been a Vikings fan since I have been able to understand what football is. And the Vikings have always been my favorite team, not just in football, but in sports. I mean, that has been my life growing up, is I'd watch Vikings games with my dad or Vikings games with my friends. And I don't know. One Vikings Super Bowl would be enough, honestly. And, like, I don't know, UGA's got their championships. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, let's keep the dominance rolling. Like, let's build a dynasty here. Like, let's be the next Bama. But that is an easy choice for me. I would take the Vikings in a heartbeat. I don't know. UGA March Madness basketball victory would be crazy, though. That would be insanity. But it's got to be the Vikings. I mean, come on. I don't know. Anyways, Eagles, Patriots. The thing I'm going to watch for the Patriots, this is a little more niche. I want to see how Mike Gesicki looks on this team. The Patriots signed Mike Gesicki this offseason. After Mike McDaniel took over for the Dolphins, you know, the writing was on the wall. Like, you know, Gesicki can't really block, and you kind of need to block if you're a tight end in Mike McDaniel's offense. So he was like, smell you later, you know. He didn't play much. When he did play, though, he was good. Like, people made a lot about, like, the little skedaddle gritties that he hit when he scored. But, like, you know, when he got snaps, he was getting open. He was still catching the ball. He's a very talented receiver. He's almost more like an oversized slot receiver. So I'm curious to see how Mike Gesicki does. Bill O'Brien also coming back as offensive coordinator should be big because I don't know what the heck they were thinking with Matt Patricia there last year. Like, the offense just should be better by default. But bringing in Gesicki and also Juju Smith-Schuster, this wide receiver core is not as bad as some people think. It's competent. Ramondre Stevenson is good. Offensive line is always good. I mean, it's maybe not elite like it's been before, but, you know. The Patriots are a well-coached team, and this defense especially. I struggle to think of more than like a few defenses, if even, that are better than this Patriots defense. Top to bottom, they don't have a single weakness. They're really well coached. Bill Belichick is still him when it comes to scheming up defenses. This defense is so much fun to watch. I think this game is going to be close for most throughout too. I think Philly, they lost a lot of talent. They had the famous brain drain, right? They lose both coordinators. I'm curious to see how their offense looks with Brian Johnson taking over for Shane Steichen. Now, Johnson was an internal promotion, so you like to think there's some continuity. He's known Jalen Hurts for a long time. They're good friends. But it's like a big deal that they lost both their coordinators, and that's one of the big reasons why I'm kind of fading the Eagles. And when I say fading, I have them winning like 11 or 12 games instead of 14. They're still obviously a very good football team. But I don't know. The writing, I won't say the writing's on the wall, but I think this is a team that's going to run the ball a little bit more. They didn't throw it a lot last year, but they lose Miles Sanders, and they kind of do the money ball tactic. They replace Miles Sanders in the aggregate. They've got DeAndre Swift, Rashad Penny, Kenny Gainwell, and then Jalen Hurts, who obviously is a big threat as a runner. I just think those four are going to split carries pretty evenly, and it's just going to be a constant rotation of guys getting the ball in and out. Even like Rocket League legend Boston Scott is going to be getting some work. It'll keep guys fresh. You don't want Hurts taking too many big hits. Swift and Penny are injury prone. And, you know, this is probably the best offensive line in the league, even after losing Seumalo. They have superstars. I mean, it is really good. The wide receivers are good. Don't get me wrong, this is a very good team. The one weakness that they have is the middle of the defense, and I see Ted hinting like Philly loses weirdly 35-30. If Philly loses this game, it's going to be because the Patriots dominate the middle of the field. They lose Javon Hargrave. Granted, they replace him with Jalen Carter, which we'll see how he does. They lose both their linebackers, which they bring in Zach Cunningham and Kobe Dean, who I will be watching closely. Obviously, Dean was a superstar in college. Weirdly fell in the draft, so we'll see how they do. And then the safeties, Terrell Edmonds and Reed Blankenship. I mean, that is fairly weak up the middle. And again, it's like the analytical approach of like, okay, safeties, linebackers, like we don't really care. It doesn't really matter. But going up against a team like the Patriots who have Gesicki, they have Juju Smith-Schuster, they have Ramondre Stevenson, that is an area that the Patriots can attack. Now, is it enough for them to win the game? I think it's going to be close. I'm going to go Eagles 28, Patriots 21. But it would not shock me if the Patriots get the upset, and if they do, that's how it's going to be, is they're going to attack the middle of the field. Gabe says, I think that there will be a team that won't score a single touchdown this week. If there were some nice odds for that, what would you take it, Doctor? Ooh, not a single touchdown. I'm trying to think of who that would be as I'm looking around. Honestly, oh, man. See, because I feel like it'd have to be a pretty bad offense going up against a pretty good defense. Like, it'd just have to be an obvious mismatch. Ooh. You know, I think if I had to pick one to not score a single touchdown, it might be the Rams, honestly, especially without Cooper Kupp. We'll get to that game soon. But first, let's go to Dolphins-Chargers. But it might be the Rams. Is Bill on the hot seat if they miss the playoffs? Absolutely. I think so. Like, there's just been so much chatter. I don't know if you've guys been keeping up with what Robert Kraft says, but someone asked him this offseason about, like, Bill getting close to the all-times win record. And Robert Kraft is kind of weird and is like, well, we're not really, like, playing for stats or records or anything. Like, all of the comments that Robert Kraft have made this offseason kind of indicate that, like, he's getting a little impatient with Bill. He really does not like how Bill promoted Matt Patricia to offensive coordinator last year. And they really like Gerard Mayo. Like, they have been, like, public about endorsing him, which is uncharacteristic for the Patriots. Like, normally a lot of their assistant coaches don't have, like, specific titles or roles. But they were, like, specific and be like, you know what? Gerard Mayo got a promotion, which they normally do not do. And it follows the wave of, like, young former players going on to be coaches. It's something to watch. Saying Bill is coaching for his job this year is a little harsh. But if they win, like, 7 games, I could see them mutually agreeing to part ways. I could see it. This is probably the hottest his seat has ever been. I'll say that. And Bill Belichick, you know, you could argue greatest coach of all time. No disrespect to him, obviously. But there is some pressure on him this year. All right. So, Caden says Houston, Colts. Oh, for teams that might not score a touchdown. I could see the Colts, especially without Jonathan Taylor, Anthony Richardson tuning up a little bit. Jags defense is underrated, in my opinion. That's not a bad pick. Akers' comeback game for the Rams. And they could get the second pick. I will say that for sure. All right. Dolphins-Chargers. This one is fun. I wish this was the Sunday night game, but we'll take the CBS time slot. I don't think they get the Jim and Tony team, but I think it's Kevin Harlan, though, which low-key might be better. I don't know. I like Kevin Harlan a lot. I respect his game. So I said this before. I'm not super high on the Chargers, but I've also cooled down on the Dolphins a little bit. Teron Armstead being out is a big deal. They are really going to miss him. Their offensive line was significantly worse without Teron Armstead last year. I am a little worried about that. I will say, for the record right now, I have the Chargers winning this game. I'm going to go Chargers win. And especially, like, the Dolphins don't have Jalen Ramsey either. Like, this is a team that is hobbled coming into the season. And the Chargers had a great game plan for them last time they played. Chargers handled the Dolphins easily. Better than the final score would indicate. I'll go Chargers 31, Dolphins 24. Chargers win by a touchdown at home. Chargers are favorites, and I actually agree. Even though, like, I'm not super high on the Chargers, their run defense still concerns me. They just have not really done anything to fix it. New offensive coordinator, that's what I'm watching for the Chargers. Are they going to push the ball down the field with Kellen Moore now calling shots? Justin Herbert had, I think it was like the lowest average depth of target in the NFL last season, which is crazy for a strong-armed quarterback and a team that has vertical threats like Mike Williams, and they bring in Quentin Johnson. Johnson or Johnston? I don't remember, actually, which is rough. But TCU guy, really fast, really tall. Typical Big 12 receiver. The Dolphins just have weird vibes around them, with Teron Armstead being hurt, Ramsey is hurt. Tua, you're just kind of holding your breath every time he drops back. I have the Dolphins finishing last in the division, which is crazy because this is a very talented team. And with Vic Fangio now as their defensive coordinator, like their defense should be better. But I'm going to take the Chargers winning this one by a touchdown. These are both playoff teams from last year, and they both might not make it this year. If I had to pick playoff teams from last year to not make it this year, Dolphins and Chargers are two that I'm circling. I'd also say the Vikings and Giants are other two to watch out for that might not make it. But Rams, Seahawks, this one could be rough. The thing I'm watching for the Rams is Matthew Stafford okay? I talked about this in my quarterback stream, right? Stafford with the elbow injury. He was, Stafford got hurt and ended up missing most last season, but he was not good even when he played last season. Is Stafford okay? If Stafford plays decent, then you think, okay, maybe the Rams will be competent once Kupp comes back. But man, the Rams seized their day and they got their ring. And it's a good thing they got it when they did because, oh man. There are a few people in the comments section of my video saying the salary cap isn't real. Please look at the Rams depth chart now and tell me that the salary cap is not real. They have Puka Nacua starting. They have Russ Yeast starting. I mean, please tell me. Darion Kendrick, former Bulldog, is starting. That's crazy. Just look at this team and tell me that the salary cap isn't real. It very much is. They've had to let guys go. I mean, they let Bobby Wagner go. They let Jalen Ramsey go. They let Allen Robinson go. They could not keep everyone. They got their ring, and now they're paying the price. If I'm the Rams, I think it's worth it, but ugh. And the Seahawks, the big surprise from last year. Hey, I got to say, the Seahawks were like last year's Panthers for me. I didn't have them making the playoffs, but I said that they were going to win 7 or 8 games, and they were not going to be as bad as people thought. Remember, last year, people thought the Seahawks might get the first overall pick, be the worst team in the league. It was Geno Smith and Drew Lock as their quarterback competition. But then Geno didn't write back. And this Seahawks team, they played a good brand of football. They won some games, and they made the playoffs. I could see them coming back to the playoffs again this year. They drafted JSN, who I don't know if he's playing or not. I think the report is that he might not be playing. Looks like he might be playing. Great trio of wide receivers. Kenny Walker, Zach Charbonnet, great on offense. Offensive line, much improved. They have a pretty good offense. And if Geno can just be good again, they could put up some points. On defense, secondary looks incredible. Linebackers I really like. Can they get some more out of their edge rushers, though? That's all that you're really hoping for. I like Uchenna Nwosu, but you're hoping that Boya Mafe could maybe step up a little bit because I don't know. You just hope they can get a little bit more out of their pass rush because everything else looks pretty good. I could see them winning 10, 11 games and really threatening the Niners for the division. I'm going to say the Seahawks win pretty easily. 5-point favorites. I think they cover fairly easily. I'm going to say Seahawks win 33-17. Ted has Chargers winning 30-20 and Seahawks 10-7. Okay, all right. I don't know. I think Seattle handles this game pretty comfortably. We're almost there. We've just got 2 games left. The Sunday night game, Cowboys-Giants. I have the Cowboys in the Super Bowl. I'm going to take another drink of water because my throat is really starting to feel it now. We're almost there. And then we've got the Docs-Locks. And then, here's Henry poses a great question that I'll ponder while I drink. So he says, I don't believe in Geno, to be honest. Maybe they try and get Kirk in the offseason. Ooh, this is a spicy one for a couple of reasons. So, Geno Smith, was last season a flash in the pan? It's very possible. Now, a lot of advanced numbers would actually say that it wasn't. His completion percentage over expected, I think, was highest in the NFL. And honestly, a lot of his tape just looked really good. He was just making some insane throws. Now, maybe Maybe he just got really hot, and like I think to an extent some of that is not sustainable. But I think Geno just needs to be decent for this Seattle team to make the playoffs, which is possible. Now, they set up his contract in a way that they can get out of it fairly easily. Kirk is an interesting name. I feel, because I do believe that this is probably Kirk's last season with the Vikings unless something crazy happens. The fact that they didn't extend him in the offseason, they had every opportunity to, points to the fact that like the writing is on the wall. Like the Vikings have to win multiple playoff games for Kirk to come back. I could see Kirk end up in the NFC West. I think the Seahawks are an interesting team. I also think the 49ers are an interesting team, depending on how the season goes for them. It's no secret Kyle Shanahan loves Kirk Cousins. I don't know if you guys saw the report. He like tried to trade the 3rd overall pick for Kirk back in 2018, I think it was, right? So, I don't know. Also, we still haven't guessed Ted's team yet. All right, I'm going to throw another guess out there. 49ers, why not? I don't know, 49ers maybe. But I could see them getting Kirk if things go south. Like if Geno really regresses, they'll be in the quarterback market. They've set themselves up to where if they don't like what they see from Geno, they can go get a guy. Kirk is an interesting name. I could not fathom Kirk playing for the Seahawks, but it's possible. All right, Cowboys-Giants. We'll keep this one fairly quick. The Giants bring in a few new faces in their receiving core. Darren Waller, obviously. They also drafted Jalen Hyatt. Should be improved from last year. It was pretty rough. Also, Deonte Banks was a pretty good pick, their corner. This Giants front four is disgusting. I tweeted out some Dark Horse award picks for the NFL season. And for the record, you know, Jalen Phillips is my Dark Horse for Defensive Player of the Year. This is a channel that loves Jalen Phillips. I've been on that train for a while. If you want another one, how about Dexter Lawrence? I don't know if any of you guys watch Brett Coleman here. I feel like there's some overlap. But he made a video on Dexter Lawrence. I think it was like earlier this week. Just go watch it. Dexter Lawrence is a specimen, and he is easily the best nose tackle in the NFL. He plays his position of nose better than anyone else. And you could say like Chris Jones is a better interior defensive lineman, but Dexter Lawrence destroyed the Vikings in the playoffs last year. He's unbelievable. They also have Leonard Williams, Kayvon Thibodeau, Azeez Ojulari too. They bring in Isaiah Simmons, who I think will be blitzing a ton. This is a team that's going to get a lot of sacks. Secondary, we'll see. They've got a lot of younger guys. Deonte Banks, you hope, can step up right away. McKinney's pretty good. Adoree Jackson is solid. The defense should be pretty good. The offense should be all right, too. Game Solved asks, what are your thoughts about the Jags? I'm very high on the Jags. I have them as the 3 seed currently. If you want a really spicy take, I think the Jags could make Kansas City start 0-2 next week. I have the Jags beating KC next week. I'm very high on the Jags. I think they're one of the better teams in the NFL. Their offense is going to melt people's faces off. And I could see them hanging 40 on the Colts today. I don't know. Not 49ers, 5 out of 32. Man, at some point I might just have to wave the white flag, you know? I think we're all very interested to see what your team is. But it's not the 49ers. All right. How about, give us a hint. Is it AFC or NFC? How about that? We'll work from there. But the Giants should be better on offense. Maybe a little bit better. I don't think the Giants are going to regress as much as some people think. Obviously, they won a lot of close games last year, but I don't know. And then the Cowboys. The Cowboys might have the best defense in the NFL. They're really good on offense. I'm not scared of Dak Prescott like other people are. I don't know. They improved their wide receivers. The line is still pretty good. There's some injury concerns, but, you know. But, I mean, I've talked about this Cowboys defense so much. Just look at how good they are. Dan Quinn is an excellent defensive coordinator. This might genuinely be the best team in the NFC. And I know we get burned by the Cowboys so many years, like, oh, this is their year, and then they let us down. Dallas is looking good this year. I could see 13, 14 wins, top seed. They're going to do some damage. I have them winning this division, and I think a win right here would be a good start for them. I'm going to have the Cowboys winning this one. They're going to start off 1-0. Road win against the Giants. We're going to say 33-20. That's my pick. I am high on the Giants as well. I mean, hey, the Giants are a good, honest team. I could see them making the playoffs. Like, it's definitely possible. They're not going to just roll over. They're not going to regress that much, I don't think. They're also really well coached. Brian Daboll deserves so much credit for what he's done, turning that team around so quickly. But yeah, I think we're waiting for you to drop the team, Ted. I would love to know what team you support. And hey, if the Bears-Packers ends in a tie, maybe I'll send a hat your way or something. All right, one more game, and then we'll do the Docs Locks, and then we're going to get ready for some football. All right, Bills-Jets, Monday night opener in New York, Rodgers' debut, two teams with Super Bowl aspirations. Oh, man. It does not get much better than this. Monday Night Football is officially back as the premier game of the week, and I love it. Cue the theme, Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, who I actually really like. I don't know. I like Joe Buck. He's improved a lot. He has the perfect big game voice. Pass is caught. Isn't it obvious on conference? Well, it's got to be either AFC or NFC, but is it the AFC or the NFC? That's what I'll ask. But Henry asks, over under Trey Lance starts 0.5. I'm going to say under because I think even if Dak goes down, and again, I say this as a Trey Lance truther, if Dak goes down, why not start Cooper Rush? Cooper Rush is still there. He knows the team. He knows the offense a lot better. They won with Cooper Rush last year. If I'm the Cowboys, if Dak goes down, I'm starting Cooper Rush over Trey Lance. So I'm going to say under. I don't know. I don't think he sees the field again this year, which stinks. But it is what it is. All right. So what I'm watching for with the Jets, obviously Aaron Rodgers. I mean, do we really even need to talk about it? Everything that has been said about Rodgers has been said. There's nothing new. I mean, I don't know. Garrett Wilson, a very exciting young receiver. The defense is elite, probably one of the three best in the league. Okay, AFC for both of my favorite teams. All right, and I'm trying to think of the teams that we've guessed so far. I'll get to that in a sec. But the Bills, full disclosure, are my Super Bowl pick, which I know is maybe a little against the grain because people seem to be down on the Bills and they're starting to fall off. But I just really like the offseason that they had. They were very self-aware. They addressed a lot of their weaknesses, and that was stopping the run and running the ball. What do? They bring in Taylor Rapp and Poona Ford, two very under-the-radar moves that might not be flashy, but Poona Ford, big defensive tackle from Seattle, good at taking up space, just being a massive force, and Taylor Rapp, a defensive back who's also good at playing the run, and maybe we might see some more of Big Nickel. I think Taylor Rapp and then Weber State legend Teron Johnson might be rotating in and out some, depending on the down and distance, and if it's going to be a pass or a run. The defense dealt with injuries. Von Miller's not going to play right away. They do bring in Leonard Floyd, and the defense was really injured last year, and they were still really good. I don't know. I think people are just bored of the Bills and overthinking this now. They probably will have a top 5 offense and a top 5 defense. When Josh Allen is healthy, in my opinion, he's the second best quarterback in the NFL. They still have Diggs. Gabe Davis maybe isn't a true number 2, but he's a big play threat. Dawson Knox, and then they draft Dalton Kincaid, who I think we're going to see a lot of. I think they expect Dalton Kincaid to be pretty good right away, and I think he'll be lining up just as much in the slot as he is at tight end. So, I don't know. They have a few new faces on the offensive line. So, I'm interested to see how much of a makeover this Bills team really has gone under. They also promoted. Sean McDermott is just taking over defensive coordinator duties from Leslie Frazier now. So, I don't know. Honestly, Ted, you took the words right out of my mouth. He says, Jets win, but it's superficial. Buffalo is not a good early season team. They're better overall. Rodgers has a lot to prove. Jets win 31-28. That is crazy because I also have the Jets winning this game. I think the Bills will win the war. They'll win the division. Few new faces on the offensive line. They'll need to gel maybe a little bit. Jets have a great pass rush. I still am very high on the Jets. For the record, this is actually my AFC Championship game matchup right here. I do think the Jets will win. It's going to be an emotional win. Season opener, Monday Night Football in New York. I think we will see these teams play 3 times this year. That is my take. I don't know. And I think the Bills will win the war, but the Jets will win this battle. I'm going to go Jets win 28-25. It's going to be a good one. I'm excited for this game. I have to work, which stinks. I'm going to be working a volleyball game. I work over at a newspaper in Georgia, the Coney Enterprise. I'm the sports intern over there. And I'm going to have to go to good old-fashioned Prince Avenue volleyball. But I'll catch as much of this game as I can. But that is the Sunday and Monday night slate for Week 1. We are Now, 42 minutes away from opening kickoff. I'm starting to get giddy with excitement. Before we wrap up, let's go to the Docs Locks. All right, so I have a few lines that I really like. If you guys are betting people, feel free to take my advice or don't. I'll be honest, I lose a lot when I play. So, but here's a few lines that I really like. And, if you have any fantasy questions or anything like that, trying to set your lineup, hit me my way. Even if we're in the same league, I'll be honest, I'll spit some free game. I'll help you out as much as I can. You're talking to the doctor, not Eric here. So I talked about this before. I really like Mike Evans over 56.5 receiving yards. I talked about it extensively at the beginning of this stream. Buccaneers versus Vikings is just a bad matchup, in my opinion, for the Vikings, especially if it's someone like Andrew Booth or a Caleb Evans on Mike Evans. Even though Baker is shaky as a quarterback, Mike Evans is a big play wide receiver. I mean, he could get 57 yards on one catch realistically. But I really like Mike Evans to go for like 100 yards today. I think 56.5 is a very good line for him. I also like Trevor Lawrence, 256.5 passing yards. I like the over. I mean, again, just go look at that Colts secondary. It is not good. This is a Jaguars team that's going to throw the ball. They're going to put up points. They add Calvin Ridley. I mean, Trevor Lawrence could throw for 300 yards in this game, and I wouldn't bat an eye. Trevor Lawrence played incredible football down the stretch last season. He is my MVP pick, as you might have seen in the Jaguars video. And it's just another very good matchup. So those are a few lines I really like. I'm sorry that they're not on the screen. At some point, maybe when I get a little bit more money, I'm going to try and beef up these streams a little bit, get some more graphics, maybe a better webcam. I'm just using the camera on my computer right now. Maybe a new mic too. So I do appreciate y'all bearing with me here, as I don't have the greatest technology yet, but that's going to come one day, I promise. But hey man, we're just talking ball right now. That's all that matters. But I'll give one more line that I like here, and then maybe I'll pick like a spread pick or something, because not everyone likes doing daily fantasy. But Lamar Jackson. Now, I think the line has shifted on him a little bit for passing yards. I got it when it was at 216.5. I think it's up to 224 now. But again, the Ravens are going to throw the ball a lot. I think they're going to be intentional about throwing it early in the season with their new offensive coordinator. A lot of new weapons, even with Mark Andrews out. I mean, if you look at Lamar Jackson getting 217 yards, you might be like, oh, that's a bit of a disappointment. But that would hit for him. I don't know. They're going to throw the ball. So those are some player props that I like. We'll go and find a team, like a spread pick. As Game Solved asks, what is your NFC Super Bowl pick? Well, again, this is a bit of a spicy one. I mean, not the spiciest. I feel like they're clearly in the top 3 for teams in the NFC. I've got the Dallas Cowboys representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. Elite defense, maybe the best in the NFL. Offense is great. I still believe in Dak Prescott. I think the interceptions are a little overblown. A lot of them are drops or on his receivers. And just historically speaking, he's not a quarterback that really turns the ball over. They're a very well-coached, well-balanced team, and this is the best team that they've had in years. And the Eagles kind of took a step back a little bit. I feel like the Cowboys and Eagles were actually pretty even last year. They were pretty close. Both the games they played, one team was missing their starting quarterback, but both games were close. They split. I think even if they split again this year, Dallas is just right there, and I think they can close that gap, win the division. I don't know, the 49ers are still very good, but there's questions with depth with them. They've lost some guys. There's always injury concerns. If Dallas is going to do it, this is the year. That's what I'll say. Everything is set up for them this year. If it doesn't happen this year, it's just not going to happen with this core. But that's what I've got. That's my NFC Super Bowl pick. But for a line that really catches my eye, I mean, I referred to a few of them earlier. One that I would stay away from is that Baltimore 9.5. That's a little scary. It might be easy to say, of course, Baltimore wins by 10. I don't know, man. I could see the Texans doing a backdoor cover. That one's a little scary. I really think the one that I like the most is Jags 3.5. They win by they win by 4 or more. This Colts team is not very good. I think the Colts could be picking in the top 5 of the draft again. That's the one I feel the best about. All right, we're about to wrap up the stream. Ted, if you're still in here, you got to drop the team, man. We're about to wrap things up. I think the people want to know, who is your favorite team? Shout out to Ted. New face. Shout out to Ted and Game Solved. New faces in the stream. We also had, what was his name? I don't think he's in here anymore, but we had some new faces in the stream. Anything for clicks, that was his name. And Therapy Disputes. We had some new faces in here today, and I appreciate y'all tuning in and watching this. I know we went a little bit over time, but honestly, I don't care. I just want to be done before the games start. It's 12:23 right now. We're about to wrap things up. I'll bring the camera full again so you guys can see me a little bit better, but it is football time, man. Final guesses. I'm going to throw one final guess into the wind, and then we'll see. I'm going to say Broncos. That's my final answer. Final guess. Denver Broncos. I don't know. We'll see, but thank you guys so much for watching the stream. I had a ball. I plan on doing this every single Sunday morning before the games start. We're going to be going live and talking ball, making picks. And again, seriously, like, this is fan-driven. So I love the activity in the stream chat here today. If you guys ever have any questions, anything you want me to talk about, always just hit it my way. You know, I'm doing this for you guys just as much as I'm doing it for me. So I've had a lot of fun. Gabe says, shout out to Caden. You know what? Shout out to Caden. That man has been, also, I should take it off the, oh wait, never mind. Actually, I was just looking at the screen. Anyways, OBS thing. But yeah, shout out to Caden. That man has been putting in work behind the scenes. Honestly, shout out to Gabe too. A lot of the people in here have been putting in work behind the scenes. Christine has been putting in work as well, helping me organize stuff, make things look aesthetically pleasing. So I am very fortunate to have a very good team around me. This is not all just me making this happen. I've got some excellent people in my life that have been really making this happen. And, you know, if you're watching this and you came from my latest video, like, I'm just floored with how well it did. Like, over 60,000 views. I hit over 1,000 subscribers. I say this with all sincerity that, like, this is genuinely what I want to do with my life. And, you know, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I'll have backup plans. But this, I graduate in December, and, like, I am all in on trying to make this happen. And I don't know. I'm just very fortunate that even right now, like, I'm just some random 23-year-old in Athens, Georgia. But y'all, like, tune in and spend, like, 2.5 hours of your morning listening to me talk football, talking with me. So drum roll for Ted Rogers' favorite team. We have a guest for the Patriots, the Dolphins, and the Broncos. What is it, Ted? Drop the team, man. We're waiting. We're going to be rooting for this team today no matter what. We're going to hope they win it for Ted. It's almost that time. I'm going to double-check my lineup for fantasy lineups. I'm in a few leagues this year, and off to a rough start in a couple of them, I'll say that. For whatever reason, I've just never been very good at fantasy football. It has been a long time since I've won a fantasy championship. I will say that. Where did these teams go? All my old teams are here right now. I don't know why I'm not showing up. I'm clearly signed in, but Gabe says it's definitely the Orioles. You know, if you're following baseball, the Orioles are looking pretty good right now. But here's Dr. Pigskin's Gridiron Army. That 1 point came from Kadarius Toney, who I started. If you watched my, well, I guess you can't see it on the screen right now. I don't know what I'm doing. Y'all can't see it on the screen, but I started Kadarius Toney over Cooper Kupp. But, oh, here we go. All right. I was born and raised a Steelers fan. My family was from there, even though I was born and raised in Utah. I watched all retro Steelers game on VHS. Jacksonville is my second favorite team. Dude, that's so crazy because literally my last two videos have been about those teams, the Steelers and the Jaguars. I feel like maybe that's how you found this channel, but all right, the Steelers. You know what? Here we go, Steelers. We're rooting for the Steelers today, and you know what? If the Bears and Packers tie, I will message you somehow or something, and I will send you a Pittsburgh Steelers hat. How does that sound? We'll shake on it right now. If the Packers and Bears tie, we're going to get Ted a Steelers hat. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. That's all I've got. Go enjoy the game, set your lineups, get some good food, and enjoy football. That's what it's all about. All right. The doctor is out. Love you guys. Y'all have a good Sunday.